Well, guys, we are back for another episode of the Liberal Asshole Show, episode 120. And what are today's topics?
Huge wildfires destroy parts of Los Angeles. Simon Clarke's 2024 and climate change video. Tim blows up on David Pakman versus Cenk Uygur. Hamas-Israeli ceasefire. Mexico president obliterates neoliberals and conservatives. Biden's report card, and our final warning to conservatives.
Oh boy, did I blow up on David Pakman versus Cenk Uygur. But now, let's get on to the episode. So, what do we start off with first?
Huge wildfires destroying parts of Los Angeles.
So, of course, this started over a week ago. A massive wildfire broke out in Los Angeles. Parts of the city have been destroyed. Over 20 people, last I checked, died. And so far, damages is on track for over $150 billion, which would be the most costliest disaster, not only in California, but potentially American history. Only thing that could potentially top that are Hurricane Katrina and Harvey, and that was like $120 billion. This is more than that. And I can't think of what else could be worse than this. So, absolutely very devastating and all that. And of course, they even had to force the Rams-Vikings playoff game to be moved to Glendale because of it and such. Very unfortunate and all that. But of course, conservatives always have to lie about stuff as always, instead of blaming the actual reason, climate change. Let's see, DEI, lesbians,
women,
Ukrainians. Who else did they not blame? Can't think of who else they did not blame, because they blame everything on everyone. And oh my god, this was actually a tough video to pick up, because Kyle did multiple good videos, Dole did a good video, Mike did a good video, but Kyle's one was the shortest. I decided to go with that because we have so many big topics, because he obliterated all the idiot conservatives that always lie about every single thing and blame everything but the actual reason, climate change. So, let's get into Kyle making fun of idiots as always.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about some of the conspiracy theories around the LA wildfire, because it is wacky. Okay, people are saying just bizarre things. So here we have the BBC Verify guy. He comes out and says, in the space of 24 hours, Naomi Wolf, not to be confused with Naomi Klein, by the way. I feel horrible for Naomi Klein because her doppelganger is like evil. Naomi Wolf has claimed that the fires in LA are an actual war of foreign invasion, a plot to kill people to destroy evidence of COVID vaccine effects, weather manipulation, a deliberate bombing campaign, and mass spraying of mood stabilizers.
Mass spraying of mood stabilizers. What the fuck? And this is just this is how silly you conservatives are.
Here and say maybe it should have been mass spraying of mood stabilizers. Because if we have people like Naomi Wolf saying dumbass shit like this, she could use some of those. In fact, she could use a double dosage.
At least the women are.
You always need to have tampons all over the place because all you do is cry and moan about nothing. How about that one?
She says, so Canada and Mexico have sent in military...
that's their job, though. That's the whole part of Griff.
Like elongated Musgrave turned into Twitter into a Nazi-infested tampon. There you go. You all cry about...
And now we've got Mark Fuck the Butt who's doing the same thing with Facebook. Because these tech bros want all social media to be Nazi shitholes.
Remember when they all cry about base shuckle walls having tampons in men's bathroom? Sounds like you guys need it because all you do is cry every day.
National Guard, it's an invasion, people. It's a war.
Oh, yeah. Because Canada and Mexico sent National Guard, to help put out the wildfire and save people. Canada and Mexico's invading. I mean, Trump wants to do the reverse to them, so why do you give a shit?
He wants to invade every country on the planet and make America be the only country on the planet, so...
Hey, but if you want to do that, Trump, do it on Age of History 3 like I did recently as Maze, a German state, into Kaiserreich.
Nice.
Really? You think Canada and Mexico are invading the U.S.?
Yes,
and their way of doing that is to help put out wildfires?
Because they're retarded.
She also says, fires ramp up adrenaline. Per Dr. McCullough, adrenaline surges cause cardiac arrests we see in the formerly healthy vaccinated, incling young people.
You guys the fire are also still trying to blame COVID.
Blaming that. I knew they would do that.
Why? You guys are so desperate to blame COVID on everything. How sad are you?
Yeah.
Damage to healthy humans?
That's because they're the saddest people we know.
because conservatives are
They have
always
no
miserable.
life.
Maybe they should be happy and read anime and manga every day like My Blossom in Summer. But then again, Ayaka will trigger them. You must be progressive because God commands it.
Follow this woman. Yeah, look at her numbers. Look at her numbers. Well, these aren't that impressive, but this one kind of is. 2,996 likes. So she says, are your friends in LA not reacting to danger in an expected way? Are they almost in a trance? Multiple confirmations independently that suggest that this is the case, including from a therapist who says her patients are not reacting normally. Could a mood stabilizer of some kind be in what was sprayed?
What?
Or do weather manipulation waves entrain human thought patterns in some way?
You know...
What the fuck are you on about?
You know, you Karen cunt. You're almost there. You're almost there. Yes, there is weather manipulation. But you know what it is? Climate change.
Climate change.
Yeah, that's the actual weather manipulation, but you guys fervently deny it at all costs when the evidence is so overwhelming. Like California being more dry and all that, because we just saw the last several, decades or so, California's had major droughts, major wildfire outbreaks, and then I think last 2 years they had major winter storms that caused them to have major flooding, which was made worse because when ground is drought riddled, it doesn't hold water as well, so it makes flooding even worse. You all remember that because we covered that in the last 2 years. California had that massive flooding everywhere, even though they had their drought. And now, so far this year, they haven't had rain in months, and this is the wet season for the West Coast. They're supposed to be getting rain all over the place, like they did the last 2 years and had the flood.
Oh yeah, something else I got to mention. With this, there's been no monsoon. The monsoons haven't hit the Northern Territory yet, and we're now in mid-January.
Yep. Probably. Oh, that's right. Was La Nina in effect yet? Since El Nino died out earlier last year.
So. If it is, it's weak.
Yeah. But yeah, guys, climate change is the reason for all this.
We are there in history.
Which, hey, when we get to Simon Clarke's video next, you'll get exposed once again why it's climate change.
And must ask the questions. So look, this woman is she's just like female Alex Jones. This looks like some sort of bomb or attack.
That's probably what she's played. That's probably what she's paid to do.
Just getting warmed up here. That's Naomi Wolf. Again, apologies to Naomi Klein, who has to suffer this woman's existence.
Hey, how do you think I feel when there's someone by the name of Dim Fool I have to deal with?
Particularly got under my skin. So all these right-wing accounts are out there parroting this idea. Ready? I just heard from my brother, a firefighter in Central Oregon, that the 60 fire trucks the state sent to support the LA fires are being held up in Sacramento for emissions testing. They likely
You conservatives lie about this all the time. There's no emissions testing going on, so shut the fuck up. So stop making crap up.
There'd be no point for that.
So this person said this on January 10th. Okay, at 3:26 in the afternoon.
More than any fire trucks would.
This was released before that, the same day at 11:26 a.m., hours before. Here's the Oregon State Fire Marshal. The Oregon strike teams arrived Thursday and are assigned to the Palisades fire. 11 of the teams began their assignments this a.m. The teams are motivated, committed, and excited to get out to the line and help where they are needed.
Firefighters humiliating conservatives again?
Was already out there to debunk the nonsense.
Yep, as usual.
By the way,
maybe you all should shut the fuck up and let them do their job and risk their lives. How about that one?
They're overregulated, bro. The government's so crazy there, bro. That's the argument they're making.
Maybe you should shut up and say you don't know what they're doing, whereas they do.
But none of it's true. That's not true. The Oregon firefighters were already on the ground doing...
Remember you guys always cry about... Oh, I'm sure Kyle will bring up because they kept crying about DEI. How about you all shut the fuck up and let them do what they're doing? They know what they're doing. You don't, so zip it.
Their thing. There's just a bullshit lie.
It's the SJWs.
To feed catnip to the right, and the right fell for it. Hook, line, and sinker.
Because conservatives are morons. Out here,
that thing that Elon says, and that whatever her name is, the CEO, dumbass bitch.
Yeah.
And it's fun making fun of them. Even nitwit villagers are smarter than them and more useful. Think that'll get them mad?
Top of Twitter, what she says. You are the media now. Okay, well, maybe that's a bad thing. Maybe that's not good. Maybe the right-wing bullshit that spreads like nobody's business, like wildfire, no pun intended, maybe that's a problem. God damn it, I hate these people so much. All right, but I haven't even gotten...
It sure is fun making fun of them, though, Kyle.
Stuff here. But how about some of the most impactful lies? Well, here is our big, beefy, wet boy himself. the Don, he hit us with just a tsunami of horse shit on this issue. Virtually everything he said on this is completely untrue. And,
what do you
we're gonna
expect
run
from a
through it. Watch
brain-dead
this.
old
Tonight,
moron?
anger and a search for where
Yep.
to put it.
He's being
Los Angelinos
puppeted
are
by.
fighting
He's
through the
dead.
worst
He's
days of
dead and
their
only
lives.
being puppeted by the dark side of the Force.
An elongated Musgrave.
Yep.
And they're trying to figure
Yep.
out who to point the
Elongated
finger at to
Musgrave's also
explain
being,
this gut-punched loss
doing
that
the
they are
same
wading through
thing.
right now. President-elect
Let's deport your ass to South Africa
Donald Trump is
Yep,
threatening the
exactly.
governor,
and
Gavin
take all
Newsom.
your money.
Yep, steal everyone's money, steal his money and give it to every single worker that he's completely screwed over.
And I was able to get him federal approval from that, from the Department of Commerce of all.
Listen to how
departments. I didn't
brain
realize
dead
it
Trump
would go through Commerce.
sounds.
I would have thought environmental, but it goes through Commerce. I got all of the approvals, and he said, I don't want to sign it, I don't want the water.
Makes sense,
CNN's
Trump,
Daniel
you
Dale is joining
moron.
us for a fact check of some of this. So
No, he
Daniel, can you
can't.
tell us about what Trump said there?
Yep,
Is
because
it
he's
true?
old and brain dead like
I
Biden.
showed the social media post from the president-elect yesterday to an expert in
As I said,
California
they're
water
both
policy,
being
a man named
puppeted by
Jeffrey
the dark
He
side
said,
of the
"Avi,
Force, and
none
within
of
the
it is
next
true."
year,
So this is just
that
a staggering
that'll be
quantity of
released
wrongness from the president-elect
on.
in a very short period of time.
No. It's not wrongness. It's not wrongness. It's not like, oh, it's an honest mistake. No, he's lying. This is what he does. He lies. If he
Remember
throws
Trump
100
lied over
lies at
30,000
you
times
in
from his
one
last
statement,
president? I
Yeah.
sure
he knows
do.
maybe
remember
he'll be
that.
able to fight
Yep.
back on like 2 or 3 of them, and he gets away with the other 97 of them, right? Like, this is what he does. This is what he does.
He keeps saying that Governor Newsom refused to sign a so-called water restoration declaration. In fact, no such declaration even exists, as Newsom's office has pointed out. He also said yesterday that they're not using firefighting planes. We've seen those planes. They're there.
Immediately when the fires broke out, the winds were up
Yep.
to 100 miles an hour in some places. Some places
You
it was up
can't
80
fly
miles,
planes and
others it was
helicopters
up
when it's
to
high
100.
winds, you morons.
Santa Ana winds, and they were
Exactly.
fierce at
That's
the time.
why
No,
you
why
shut
would you
up.
Fly the plane.
And
There's
you,
been several. There's been a couple of fires in Australia where we weren't able to.
yeah, you
fly
know,
do the same thing.
yeah, you know firsthand from 2020. Man, maybe
Yep.
these people should shut up since they don't know what they're talking about, unlike you and me.
You can't
Mm-hmm.
fly the helicopters in that weather. You can't do it. 'Cause whenever
Exactly.
it's dangerous, number one. Number two, you're not even going to hit your targets with the fire retardant stuff in the water.
See, this
right?
is what happens when
And
you
so
think about
it's a
stuff,
policy to not
people.
fly then. So Trump
Exactly.
takes that happening when the fires initially broke out, and then it becomes this big broad statement of like, oh, they're choosing not to do it, right? So disregards the context.
You're a
disregards
fucking
the fact that they
moron.
can't do it, and disregards the fact that they
Yeah.
did as soon as they were able to. Of course, they did it. Disregards all that just to spread his narrative, just to shit on Gavin Newsom, shit on the Democrats in California, be
Shit
a
on
total fucking
firefighters for
partisan
no
hack.
reason, too.
You know, have Republican
Yeah.
politicians who are
And
saying
shit on poor people
Trump
in
shouldn't
general.
agree to send disaster relief to California unless and until Gavin Newsom steps down and Karen Bass steps
Oh
down.
yeah, Republicans are trying to only give aid with strings attached. I don't recall us doing that to you guys back in September when the 2 hurricanes hit when we covered that.
Even though we
Be-
should have.
Because you guys are violent and evil. How about they get aid no matter what? Because that's the right thing to do.
Exactly.
But then again, you conservatives want America to die. So how about that one?
They love.
Rank,
They love
Especially when it's liberal.
petty politics at a
Yep.
time where there's a
They
$150
want
billion
genocide.
disaster going on in this country.
The president-elect has promoted an overarching false narrative. You heard a bit of it there. That the challenges we're seeing in the firefighting effort have something to do with a long-running policy battle about how much water should be kept in the north of the state to protect fish species like the delta smelts and other environmental ecosystems, and how much should be sent to the south to help agricultural interests, farmers in an area called the Central Valley. Now, 2 water policy experts in California told me emphatically yesterday, none of this has anything to do with each other. There is simply no connection between the protection of that smelt fish in that estuary in the delta in the north and what we're seeing in the south for a number of reasons. But number one, there is no shortage of water in the Los Angeles area. The reservoirs are at or above historical levels.
That's the other thing, right? Because I saw all the Republicans were saying this when the fires broke out. And then the second I looked into it, it was like, no, they have plenty of water. Like, the water's there. They just say anything to make a political hack attack.
Because you guys
Like,
are
guys,
morons.
I don't want you to take my word for it. I don't
Because
want you to
that's
take my
all
word for
they
it.
can-
When
that's
Trump
all they
goes on one of these
do.
rants,
Imagine not thinking about stuff before talking.
I want you to do your own due diligence.
You guys are
and
stupider than
you
nitwit
to check into what
villagers.
he's saying, right? And you will find very quickly.
Pretty
holy
much.
shit! It is better to just
And you're
default,
probably jealous of
assume
their
that
green
this is a
clothes.
fucking word that comes out of his mouth is nonsense.
Water is there. Now, we have seen high-profile issues in one part of the city, Pacific Palisades, where some hydrants were dry or did not have a lot of water. But that was not because there was not enough water in the region. That was because of technical, logistical, infrastructure issues related to the hilly, mountainous terrain and the location where water tanks have been situated. So the idea that not enough water has been sent down from the north and instead has been, protecting a little fish there, and that's why we're seeing these fires be hard to contain, simply does not make sense at all.
The other thing he's been going with is talking about...
That's happening all the time, right? That's what's happening again and again and again, and they deserve it.
Man, they were really hardcore masochists.
As they say, guess what?
Well, it's almost like a kink for them.
Mm-hmm.
Has massively increased that brush removal, forest management. It didn't make a difference. It wasn't going to make a difference because you're dealing with Santa Ana winds up to 100 miles an hour and ember can fly over a fucking mile. Things were going to burn down. But they lie. They lie. And the idea is, what they're trying to get across here, oh, it's the fucking Democrats who are controlling California. Blame Karen Bass, blame Gavin Newsom. It's the Democratic leadership, and that's the problem. What kind?
Blame climate change.
Winds up to 100 miles an hour with embers that can fly over a
There's
mile.
a reason, guys,
This
why
was
decades ago California did not really get wildfires as much, but now the last 20 years they do. Climate change. That's it.
Nature at its worst. This was Mother Nature.
And I'm sure down there, too, it was the case as well,
like,
by and
there's
large.
nothing you can do to stop this.
Yep.
That's like saying,
And
hey,
should have seen
why
the
don't you stay on
conspiracy
the beach
theories on
during a
there
category...
about the fires from there.
Oh,
that's nothing compared to when South Australia lost power years back. Okay, one of the white nation politicians. Okay, so there are people being like, "Oh, our policies around energy contributed to issues with this, contributed to the blackout, not the the 20 tornadoes that went through the north of South Australia and took out a whole bunch of power lines."
Man, you guys got America's problems too in that regard.
There was one white nation politician though, who said that Australia's climate change policies caused the storm that knocked out power.
Oh my gosh. You guys are so silly.
5 hurricane and yell at it to turn around, right? That's effectively what we're trying to do in fighting back against these wildfires. We're doing the best we fucking can, but there's only so much you can do when Mother Nature decides it's a wrap. I'm coming after you.
And sometimes
right?
shit just happens,
people. They
people.
lie because they want to give you the impression, oh, if Republicans just ran California, everything would have been okay. Utter
Republican ran
fucking
California would be worse off,
every
dumbass.
square mile, every square inch of territory that burned under Democratic leadership, it would have been just as much under Republican leadership. And by the way,
actually, Kyle would have been even more burnt down because Republicans want people to die.
In terms of creating policies to fight back against climate change, you can even make the argument that if it was run by Republicans, it would have been worse. Okay, because
we know
that's
that.
at the core
Everything
of all
Republicans
of it.
touches is turned to shit.
Wildfires, more powerful wildfires, natural disasters that occur more often and are more extreme. At the heart of that is climate change. And at least California's trying to do something about it, but guess what? This isn't a state-by-state issue. This isn't one that you could just, hey, if Idaho pulls it together, we'll be better off. No, it's about the global community here.
Trump is talking about President Biden not leaving him
conservatives
any money with FEMA to deal with these wildfires. What are the facts around that?
They think it's a Jewish conspiracy to destroy white people.
Wasn't true then, and it's not true now. Now, it is true that FEMA's disaster relief fund was severely depleted by the number of disasters last year, but critically, Abby, it was replenished by the disaster relief supplemental bill that President Biden signed in December. I spoke to FEMA yesterday. They told me that there is approximately $27 billion today in that disaster relief fund, plus billions of dollars of additional disaster-related funding they have in other pockets of money.
Yeah, they're gonna need over the next 20 years, next decade, they're gonna need at least $1 trillion.
Yeah, just so you all idiot like small government fiscal conservatives don't realize, if you want to be smart fiscal conservatives, then you actually try to combat climate change, because not combating climate change would cost even more in the long run. More each and every year. So, if you're smart, you combat climate change, like base progressives want to do.
Might well not be enough to cover the needs produced by every disaster.
Like we're going to get to a Simon Clarke next.
But $27 billion is simply not no
money,
which is what Trump said yesterday.
4 years, y'all. We got 4
years of
this.
4 years of that, where America's
and you know what's
carbon emissions are going to absolutely skyrocket into
semi-capitulation that I'm seeing
space
among basically everybody. Republican politicians obviously bent the knee. They've genuflected to their overlord God King. But Democratic politicians are looking for points of agreement, and hey, let's go along.
Because
to get
you're
along
all
and that,
cucks.
and the media is doing
Yep,
both sides false privilege bullshit
because
for
they're
the
on
most
the
part.
side
And
of the
so,
alt-right over the...
4 years.
Looking at you, Cenk.
A president
Yes,
during
look
a
at
crisis,
you,
during
chunk
a
yogurt.
scandal, during a disaster.
Just wait till I
immediately
blow up
going
when we
into
get to that.
partisan
Oh
hack mode,
boy.
immediately targeting his enemies, lying relentlessly and repeatedly,
Combat
making the situation
climate
worse,
change?
not
Nah.
providing any
I wanna
leadership,
I want
not
to conquer
providing
all
any
of North
stability.
America. That would be more fun.
4 years of this.
I want
we
to
have to do. 4 years.
literally take over the world.
Because
Hope
I think
everybody's
real
happy.
life is
Hey,
age
yo.
of history free.
Yep.
Because you're a moron. And you'd be bad at playing age of history free. So yeah, what do you guys say about the fires in Los Angeles and Republicans lying about as always?
Yeah, that's all they do. That's their whole existence, is to lie about as much as they can, deflect about everything, deflect away from their sugar daddies, the billion and trillionaire oil execs who want to turn Earth into a second version of Venus.
And they love seeing people die.
Yep. And they just love being terrorists. So,
Alright, so now, let's continue on with the climate change discussion, as, once again, like we've done like the last 2 years, it's that time of year again to cover Simon Clarke's Year of Climate Change, 2024 edition. We covered 2022 and 2023, and now it's time for 2024. So, we're about to see, because remember, we watched every year, and he points out the facts. I think, well, no, we both think he might be a little bit more optimistic than we are, but he can report the facts and all that, and let's see what he has to say. So, here's his 2024 year in climate change video.
2024 is at an end, so in this video I'm going to recap the biggest climate stories from this year, review my predictions of 2024 from last year's video, and make some predictions about next year. The big headline this year was, of course, that 2024 saw global average temperatures be 1.5 degrees Celsius warmer than pre-industrial levels for the first time.
Which is not
Note, by the way,
good.
that this doesn't mean we have
Very
crossed
not
the 1.5
good.
degrees threshold. That happens when we have been above 1.5 degrees of warming over a longer time period, so 20 or 30 years, not 1 year. This, at the moment, is a one-off. We expect the temperature anomaly to come down next year due to natural factors.
it's not doing that. We're only a few days in, but it's not doing that so far.
Oscillation is going to move into a La Nina phase with a cool Pacific, if it hasn't already, and that has huge impact on global average temperatures. But that will be a temporary reprieve. In a couple of years, we will be above 1.5 again.
That's because the overriding factor behind the warming, CO2 concentrations in the atmosphere increasing, they set a new record this year at 426.9 ppm in May, well, that isn't changing anytime soon. In fact, our carbon emissions continue to climb. This year, carbon emissions from energy-related uses will probably hit a new peak of 37.4 billion tons. The warming is going to continue, it's going to get worse. But if I was to pick a theme for 2024, it would be huge amounts of bad news, with good news caveats. And those caveats have been getting bigger every year. For example, CO2 emissions reaching a new high of 37.4 billion tons represents a 0.8% increase over last year. Energy-related CO2 emissions have almost flatlined for the past decade or so.
Yeah, he shows a chart on here.
About time.
Yeah, he shows a chart from 1975 to 2023, and starting in 2019 it goes by every year, whereas previous years it's every 5 years. And if you look at 2019 to 2023, it's almost, actually no, 2015 really to 2023. It's not that far off from each other. 2019, 2023 are almost identical. So
That's all right.
So it looks like overall emissions are like peaking and not like going up like every year by and large, and all that.
It's going to take off again in the next 4 years. For the next 4 years, though, because Trump's going to be aiming to push emissions up as high as possible.
Yep. But still the good sign if CO2 emissions are like stagnant at the moment, not going massively up.
Which is
with these
good.
quite small increases year on year.
The Global Carbon Project, based at the University of Exeter, estimates that CO2 emissions this year plunged in the EU and decreased slightly in the US, while increasing massively in India and modestly in most of the rest of the world, averaging out to make barely any difference in global emissions. But what about China, you may ask?
Well, the report estimates
I was
that
hoping we
China's
show the
emissions
thing right
increased
there,
this
man.
year by 0.
Oh, here we go. Finally, whole list. So according to this list, world emissions from last year have gone up 0.8%, which he said earlier. I mean, still almost 1%. That's still not good. China's emissions gone up by 0.02%, which, hey, for China as the biggest emitter in the world, that is a good sign.
I've said the last few years that China's emissions have stabilized. Yeah. They're not going down, but they're not going up.
Yep, which is a good thing because they're the biggest emitter. America's emissions have gone down 0.06%. India's has gone up almost 5%, which is not good because they're going to be the next problem after China. EU's gone down almost 4%, which is very good. And the rest of the world's gone up 1%, which is not good.
Almost certainly led by Australia. We're probably up by like 10%.
So, I mean, it's good.
We've basically decided to ignore. I'm going to say it now. We have a zero. Australia has a 0% chance of making its climate change targets.
I don't think
we won't make it. We won't make it. We won't get close.
I don't think anyone's going to make it, to be honest with you, except very irrelevant countries. But in the end, EU, America, and China, like the biggest emitters in the world.
The EU, like, might get close. I think the EU will get the closest. Like, they'll miss by probably less than 10%. US is going to miss by about 50%. India is going to forget they exist.
And same goes for China too, probably.
Yep, China's like, they've said they've got to stabilize theirs, and so they'll at least get that done.
Yeah.
And in Australia, we're gonna have doubled our emissions instead of reducing ours by 43%. Ours will be up 43%.
But hey,
because we're trying to burn as much gas as we're trying to burn as much as we possibly can.
Yep. But EU going down a lot. America's slightly going down. China barely increasing. They're the three biggest emitters in the world. That still is a good sign. So it is flatlining. Yep. Because if we're gonna lower, we have to flatline it first. But India, you better fix that immediately. You're going to be the next problem after China. You better stop emitting immediately.
That's going to be very hard considering it's them.
And then after that, Africa too, because they're going to be the next problem.
Yeah.
Last year. And several analyses indicate that China's emissions will fall next year and keep falling due to systematic changes.
Well, we'll keep an eye on that. He says he thinks China's emissions are going to go down starting next year. We'll keep an eye on that, of course. As like we said before.
It'll probably be another couple of years.
Like we said every year, we're going to cover every time he does a video on this every year, people.
We'll see next ambitious decarbonisation plans and spectacular rollout of renewables.
Let me be clear, it is not enough that the world's emissions are flatlining. We need to bring them down. The world needs to reach net zero to prevent further warming.
Yep, it's 2035 is what we should be. We're probably not going to hit it until nearly 2100, and stand a pretty damn good chance of wiping ourselves out completely.
There's a more complicated picture, and there's a lot more good news than gets reported. Another example of that, on the subject of CO2, a study came out in October this year, finding that the carbon land sink, so forests, mangrove wetlands, that kind of thing, sucking carbon out of the air, massively decreased in 2023, leading some people to speculate that the whole land carbon system was about to collapse. Well, that didn't happen. The global land sink has largely rebounded this year. Again, this is from the Global Carbon Project, and the amount of carbon sucked out of the atmosphere by the land is near the average for the past decade. In fact, did you know that 1, net land use emissions have declined significantly over the past 2 or 3 decades? That 2, about half of net emissions come from deforestation, a lot of it in the Amazon, and 3, that deforestation rates in the Amazon have plunged by 50% over the past...
Thank you, Based Lula. That's why y'all need to keep him in power for the next few years.
Yep.
Thank you, Lula.
2 years.
Lula, yep, and don't get Bolsonaro in again, or he will literally set fire to the he will set fire to the entire Amazon.
Good thing.
And he'll set fire to the rest of he'll just set the entire country of Brazil on fire.
Well, it's a good thing he got banned from next year's election, remember?
Yep. Yep, I remember that, which is good.
But not everything that happened this year was positive or even had positive caveats. Let's go through some of the bad stuff.
First of all, a lot of natural disasters were intensified by climate change this year, notably heat waves during the Indian election, in Pakistan, during the Hajj, in Southeast Asia, and in West Africa. Flooding was also intensified in many places, notably in Spain and India.
The wildfires that just happened in LA, the hurricane, are the two major hurricanes we had.
The hurricane season in
and wild. Although, didn't El Nino died a bit near the middle of last year, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Because remember, like we said, when La Nina is around, hurricane season's worse for us. Man, at the first part of the year for hurricane season, it was very quiet, but then, man, it got very active near the end of the year. It was wild how much hurricanes there were.
Was especially devastating this year.
And alongside these human-oriented disasters, we also witnessed the largest coral bleaching event in history.
Which is not good for marine life.
Yeah.
77%.
Especially you guys, the Great Barrier Reef.
As I've said, I've said it before and I'll say it again. We're going to lose the Great Barrier Reef before 2050.
Due to
there's nothing we can do at this point. The damage is too severe.
The oceans were particularly
already too severe that the Great Barrier Reef is probably largely going to be dead, pretty much close to entirely dead by 2050.
This year. Something exacerbated, we believe, by a reduction in marine sulfate emissions from ships, which that in itself is a good thing, just it had this unintended side effect. In the first half of the year, a lot was...
I don't think we've really covered it much, but there are some emissions, believe it or not, that actually help lower the temperatures if you didn't know that. Which is quite wild.
Sulfur emissions.
Yep, I think
to act as a screen to solar-rated energy. Yeah, and reflects it back into space.
Yeah, it's really wild and all that.
Possibility of climate change.
Which is why it didn't seem to have much warming for a while, because there was a lot of sulfates and that in the atmosphere.
Yep.
And then legislation was passed to clean up the air. And as a downside of that, we got cleaner air in most parts of the world, but also means that the screening effects of the sulfur dioxide has now significantly lessened, and it's now mostly the carbon dioxide and methane driving
which is wild.
Heating, yeah.
So temperatures rising faster, sea ice retreating faster, oceans warming faster than expected, with the possibility that something...
Oh, and another thing too, which triggers conservatives, I bring up all the time. Have you known for the last week, almost 2 weeks now, we've had severe cold? Remember that one night I told us 13 degrees outside?
Yep.
Next week, in fact, it's gonna actually get even colder. Some days it might get down to as low as 8 degrees at night. Which
will give you an idea of what it's like in summer on the surface of Ceres.
Yeah, it's going to be so cold that they're actually going to do Trump's inauguration inside the Capitol building now instead, because it's going to be so cold. But what I'm bringing this up is, for all of you idiots that don't know, the cold wave that we're experiencing, that's also climate change related.
Yep,
because
the polar vortex is coming down.
Yeah, normally the cold air stays in Canada because the jet stream keeps it in Canada, but it gets its energy from the ice caps. But since ice caps are melting, the jet stream has less strength, and when it happens, it droops down, so it allows all the cold air to come down here into America.
Yeah, and don't forget that if the cold isn't as bad, it could hold a shit ton more water. So -10 to say 5 degrees to 15 degrees Fahrenheit will mean a doubling of the amount of water in the atmosphere, and a 15 to 25 is something like triple.
And then not only that, because the air comes down, that also causes the temperatures in Canada to be higher than normal, which is not good for melting ice and all that.
Exactly.
Fundamental in the climate system was now broken. A lot of op-eds came out about this.
Oh, and also don't forget that Atlantic circulation is slowing, and will shut down before 2050. It looks like it's going to shut down before 2050.
It's still kind
which
of.
means parts of Western Europe and parts of the east coast of the US and Canada are going to look more like Russia.
That sounds like day after tomorrow, 50 years early.
I think it's fair to describe the consensus opinion as warming has probably accelerated, but in a way that is entirely consistent with carbon emissions just being higher. We probably haven't fundamentally broken the climate system just yet. God, that's such a low bar. Why are we celebrating?
They're breaking it right now.
2024 saw a record-breaking number of elections and international negotiations, and not all of them were complete disasters. In roughly chronological order, some highlights include Indonesia's election, which was probably a bad result due to the winner's attitude towards coal and deforestation.
We don't know anything about Indonesia's election, so we can't say.
Russia's election, which was obviously a sham.
What election did Russia?
India's election saw Modi's position.
Oh yeah, India, base Modi getting cucked a bit. That was very nice.
Slightly weaker,
that was a good
will,
thing.
I don't know, maybe result in some stronger climate policies in the long
Fuck
run.
you, Modi.
I don't think it's going to change anything in the short term.
In the arse.
Yep.
European parliamentary elections, there was a slight shift towards the right wing.
Not good.
Not the disaster that a lot of people feared. It's probably not going to change European climate policy much. While in the UK, the centrist Labour Party took power, and they've already made some pretty big changes to the UK renewables sector. And yeah, I think that's it. I don't think I missed an election.
But if it was a mixed bag in elections, this year was an absolute shambles in international negotiations. COP16, so that's the biodiversity COP in Colombia, ended in disarray, with some progress on the representation of indigenous peoples, but lots of issues left unresolved. Negotiations for a global plastics treaty collapsed in South Korea due to a small number of petrostates torpedoing language around reducing plastic production.
And we need to reduce plastic production and usage, people.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
a positive
Reduce it
was
eventually.
It needs to be
Eventually
replaced.
eliminate it.
Yeah, we need to find a replacement for plastic. Plastic, especially microplastic, is absolutely
Other
bad.
countries did support such language, raising the hope that maybe a non-global treaty could be agreed upon soon.
And of course, there was COP29 in Azerbaijan. I've been making these recap videos for a couple of years now, and it feels like every year I say this, but man, what a disappointment. Another COP in a petrostate, another COP in which developing countries felt excluded, another COP in which language around the phase out of fossil fuels was danced around, but not with. This year was a little different, I suppose. The organisation of the conference seemed remarkably incompetent. There was the dramatic walkout, or near walkout, I suppose, of an alliance of developing nations over climate finance, and that resulted in an incredibly chaotic end to the conference, with an agreement made about climate finance, which included what looked on paper like a large number, but in reality represents a very small increase in the amount of finance being made available to the developing world. You can expect climate finance to massively dominate COP30, which is in Brazil next year. There's an early prediction for you. It's no wonder that Climate Action Tracker, which keeps track of different countries' carbon policies and translates them into an expected level of warming by the end of the century, has kept our trajectory at 2.7 degrees of warming, I think the most likely number, by 2100, which is where it's been for the past couple of years. Still a lot less than the disastrous business as usual trajectory that we were on. We have made a lot of progress. We just haven't made more progress recently. In fact, many people, including ex-Secretary General of the United Nations Ban Ki-moon and the architect of the Paris Agreement, Christiana Figueres, have said this year that COPs just aren't fit for purpose anymore. Like, they were designed such that everybody had to agree on the final text, what we technically call consensus. But while that sounds great in principle, it means that a small number of countries, meaning the Russias and Saudi Arabias of the world, can stall action for everybody.
Maybe we need a new way of doing things. Quite what, I don't know. Climate Adam just made a video about this. Go watch their channel.
Oh, and whilst you're clicking links, there's one down in the description for a newsletter which keeps you updated on the big news in climate every month. I write that one. That's my newsletter. All right, yeah, okay, fine. Let's talk about the American election. Look, I said this at the time in a video over on my second channel. Wow, this is a hot fuzz moment. In all the years that I have been covering climate, I think this is probably the single worst piece of news I can remember receiving. The big number that everyone was throwing around was this analysis by Carbon Brief, which estimated that Trump could add 4 billion tons to US carbon emissions by 2030 compared to a Biden presidency. We don't know what it would have been compared to a Harris presidency, and I guess we never will. Some people have tried to find positives in this situation. It's probably not going to be 4 billion tons. I'd be surprised if it was that much of a difference, partly because there's a lot of stuff happening at the state level that's just going to carry on. Trump is obviously
until Trump tries to stop the states from doing anything.
Level, but individual states are going to carry on doing their thing. Some commentators have also argued that maybe with America withdrawing from markets for things like offshore wind, maybe that is going to intensify, concentrate those technologies in certain areas, which means they benefit from economies of scale. I think that's a bit optimistic, personally. I find it difficult to find actual positives in this news. To be honest, this is one of those moments that I really think we will look back on in climate history and say, that was a nexus point. That was the reason that we crossed this climate tipping point. This is why we lost 2 degrees by 2100. Like, it's on that level.
Yeah, maybe that's why you shouldn't have voted Trump in, you stupid idiot.
As I said in my video, it's not fatal for the global climate movement. Remember, the USA represents just about 1/8 of all emissions. And
yep, according to this chart, since 2000, American emissions have gone down drastically. EU's gone down. It's India and China, the ones that are going up.
While Trump's actions will undoubtedly spill beyond his borders, he won't kill the push to lower emissions globally, because it just makes economic sense to do it at this point. And the adults in the room will continue their countries down that path.
Taken with news of record temperatures and climbing emissions and coral bleaching, though, it's easy to see why people have fallen into despair when it comes to climate change this year. Like, the planet has never been further from sustainability. The biosphere has never been under so much stress. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. 2024 was a really rough year to cover climate change. Or, I don't know, care about the future. But as I alluded to at the start of the video, the picture is more nuanced than that. There are a lot more positives than people realize. So let's round out coverage of this year with some of those positive news stories.
Firstly, this year the world got more electricity from renewables than at any other time, more than 30%. In fact, the International Energy Agency believes that global electricity emissions have peaked and will now fall, something made possible by the incredible rise of renewables and the increasing move away from coal.
But what about the crazy number of Chinese coal-fired power plants, I hear you ask? Well, yes, they do keep building them. Yes, they represent the vast majority of new coal-fired power plants in the entire world. But, bizarrely, they don't necessarily mean that China's burning of coal is going to increase going forwards. Because of how they're used in the Chinese grid, it's quite specific to China, and also how new power plants get approved on a province level. Go read Hannah Ritchie's Substack entry on this, it's very interesting. But one of the main conclusions of that piece is that a lot of people believe that Chinese coal emissions have either already peaked or will very soon.
Matching the trajectory in much of the rest of the world. The G7 committed to phasing out coal by 2035 in April this year, and notably the UK made lots of headlines by turning off its last coal-fired power plant in September, ending 142 years of burning the fuel for power.
These moves being made possible, of course, by the incredible progress made in renewables and storage this year, and frankly for the past couple of years. Consultancy RMI released this report in June this year, finding that change in the renewables and storage sector has been exponential, outpacing basically all predictions, with costs being reduced by up to 80%. And the normally conservative IEA has also released a report predicting that renewables are just going to
will finally start taking over some regards
this decade. Almost, but not quite, hitting the ambitious United Nations target of tripling renewables capacity by 2030. But something that's important to bear in mind when it comes to these impressive global statistics, especially around renewables, is that a lot of the progress has come from China, and to a lesser extent, Europe.
Yep.
And that at some point in the not too distant future, all of the gains that can be made in those economies will have been made, and they will have basically decarbonized. And it'll be down to the rest of the world.
They won't happen because in certain parts of the world because of racism.
To carry on the fight and to bring down their emissions. They will, of course, be doing that with the benefit of proven technology and cheaper technology than at any point in history. If you want a positive slant on 2024, it is that the year showed we have the solutions to the climate crisis to bring down our emissions, and they are cheaper and better than at any point in human history.
Maybe
now,
to
as
the
I said
point
at the
that
beginning,
capitalists
I
can
made some
finally start
predictions
doing
about 2024 last year. So let's go back and review how well I did and how well those predictions matched up with reality, and make some new predictions about 2025. But before doing so, I do just want to take a moment to reflect on the incredible journey this YouTube channel has been on this year. As I said in my recent video on meeting the Prime Minister, yes, that's a thing that happened, go check it out if you haven't seen it. It was kind of a nuts story. I started this year nearly quitting this job because while I thought I was making high quality videos, nobody was watching them. And I am only still here. I've only had the opportunity to make more.
No, talk about Patreon right now. We're focused on
Normally, I shout out 3 randomly chosen patron names in a video, but just this once, I want to say a heartfelt thank you to each and every one of you. Thank you so much. With all that said, let's go back and review my predictions about 2024 from last year. The first one of which was 2024 being warmer than 2023, but not quite 1.5 degrees. So I was half right, half wrong. Secondly, I predicted that COP29 would double down on carbon capture and storage due to its inclusion in COP28. And yeah, this one didn't happen, but it didn't happen because COP29 just didn't really do anything because of organizational incompetence and the justified walkout of developing nations. So yeah, got that one wrong. Thirdly, I predicted marine heat waves, especially around Australia, with a large coral bleaching event. And unfortunately, that is exactly what happened. Fourthly, I predicted that there'd be lots of analysis about the concurrent marine heat waves in 2023 and that we wouldn't get to the bottom of what was going on. And yeah, I think that's what's happened. There's been lots of analysis and I haven't seen a true consensus develop, but like the land carbon sink issue, I think we are generally agreeing on the direction that we haven't fundamentally broken the oceans just yet. And lastly, I predicted that the climate culture war would deepen and that there would be a growing doomer movement. And boy howdy was I right about that one. I mean, here in the UK election, for example, half of the appeal of the Reform Party was that they were anti-net zero. Obviously, we saw a lot of similar narratives in America. And on the doomer movement, that actually ended up being my most popular video of the entire year. So yeah, unfortunately, I was right. So I think I've got a pretty decent track record, actually, over my predictions. So let's push my luck and make some more about 2025. Firstly, global temperatures will fall below 1.5 degrees Celsius. It's a pretty easy prediction, to be honest. I mean, we're entering into La Nina phase. I'm very confident that this one's going to happen. Secondly, Trump is going to gut climate policies at the federal level, and it's probably going to shock even people who keep an eye on this industry. But I do think that the climate movement and initiatives to reduce emissions will continue at the state level.
And he also can't stop us states from doing whatever we want either, so he can go fuck himself.
And that's where the leadership is going to come from within America. On the international stage, I predict that a few countries are going to throw their hat into the ring for who is going to be the climate leader. The UK has actually done that. Ed Miliband threw his hat into the ring at COP29. Realistically, I think China is going to position itself as the climate adult in the room. Expect that, I think, at COP30. Thirdly, more predictions will be made about the rapid rollout of renewables, and this one feels a little risky. I think we're going to blow past them again. I think the past few years have taught us that we keep underestimating just how fast the world is rolling out renewables, and specifically
green renewable
solar.
energy keeps getting bigger and
specifically
bigger each
actually
year.
Keep an eye on solar rollout in Pakistan. It made a few headlines this year. Next year, it could be quite a big story. Prediction number 4, all eyes are going to be on Antarctica in the austral summer. So where ice extent is at its lowest in Antarctica, for the past 2 years, we've seen it at record low levels. If that continues for a third year, a lot of people are going to start talking about something fundamental being broken in the cryospheric system in the southern hemisphere. And maybe that has already happened. And lastly,
yeah, I'm going to say that is true. That is like
anything could happen. I predict that because it's in Brazil, a lot of emphasis is going to be put on preventing deforestation. That's like a big national priority in Brazil at the moment.
Thank you, Base
Climate
Lula.
finance is going to be the spectre hanging over the entire conference, and especially with the failure of COP29, the pressure is
And y'all better re-elect him next year, pals.
An agreement can be made. Fantastic. If not, and I think that's more likely, my spicy prediction is that COP30 will be the last COP as we know it, and that calls to reform the whole system will get really loud. What will replace it, I don't know, but the spicy prediction is COP30, maybe the last COP. 2024 was a year in which the stakes were just raised higher and higher. The movement to prevent climate change has never had so much momentum. Our response to the crisis has never been stronger. But unfortunately, the nature of the challenge has also never been greater. This century is a tale of two wedges. One, the escalating impact of a warmer planet, with jumps due to climate tipping points. And the other, the response to that crisis, and the escalating rollout of low-carbon technologies and new ways of doing things. 2024 showed the thin end of both wedges. The thin end of the thick wedge of impacts of climate change, and the thin end of the thick wedge of our response to it. It could be seen, retrospectively, as the first decisive year in the positive story of how we brought emissions down and combated the crisis with new technologies and lots of renewables. Or the first decisive year in our failure to do so, with emissions reductions just slipping out of our grasp with COP29 and the American election. It's easy to say, well, I guess time will tell. But that surrenders responsibility to the future. It is still absolutely in our power to choose which history we get to retrospectively tell. And that starts with the first month, the first week, the first day of 2025. As I've already said, finance is going to be one of the biggest issues at COP30, and frankly, one of the defining issues of the climate movement going forwards. Not only where should the money come from, but also where should it be spent? Any allocation of funding for a specific purpose needs to have evidence that it works, whether that's reducing emissions or adapting to a warmer climate or helping people who are already affected by climate change.
Over this year, I've actually highlighted several charities that do this work.
This is a time of year when you may be considering donating to charity. And if you watch this channel,
but of course, that's not the main focus of the video, so we're going to stop right there. So, what do you guys say about Simon Clarke's recap video once again? Do you still think he's being a little too optimistic like last year?
A little bit. Yeah, I do think he's being a bit optimistic. I still think so.
But we still have to report the facts regardless of how we feel it might be too optimistic. It still is good, though. We need to, no matter how bad climate change is, we have to combat no matter what, people. Treat it like the Nazis in World War II level threat, which, of course, conservatives would actually love if they were like that. Because they're morons.
Well, we know that. Yep, that much we know. But and that's happening with that all over the world. I mean, you've seen from the Western world, the fascists rising everywhere, to even in places like West Africa, where Al-Qaeda has absolutely resurged in the Middle East and North Africa. Yep. And the countries themselves, the former colonized nations, not wanting anything to do with the West is not helping.
All right, so now that we're...
As we've been, we're also the ones fighting. They're able to fight. Able to fight them.
Alright, so now with that out of the way, of course, we'll cover his video when he covers 2025 next year. Can't wait for that. So now, on to the next topic.
Tim explodes on Pakman versus Cenk yogurt.
And you already know because I told you this. Last week, David Pakman actually had a discussion with Cenk Uygur on his horrible idea on trying to get Republicans and Trumpsters on our side, which Cenk... We tried...
That's never going to work.
We tried that last time, remember? Remember you guys were on the never support him no matter what? Like I pointed out before. You flipped on this. Just like we flipped on it.
Yeah.
And Pakman went after him on, and oh my god, Cenk was such like the smuggest idiot you've ever seen. Even more than usual how smug he was. Ugh. Yep. And Cenk, the fact that you make me have to agree with Pakman most of the time too... We don't want to agree with him.
Yeah, we do not want to.
Like you.
Yeah, definitely not.
And I don't.
He's a genocidal piece of shit. He's a fascist towards Palestinians. He doesn't think they should exist. So it's just something you should have. And yet we're having to agree with him.
Yeah, and we don't like having to do that, but has to be done. All right, so now, and I'm already going to say this right now, this will probably be in the top 5 angriest moments for me of the year. Love put that up there. So let's get this started with David Pakman, Cenk Uygur talking. Oh my God.
It's great to welcome back to the show Cenk Uygur, host of The Young Turks, author of the book Justice is Coming. Cenk, I'm so glad to have an opportunity to just have you on and to talk directly with you. You know, last time we had you on, you were on with Destiny, and we talked about some of the things we're going to talk about today, but I just want to talk to you directly. I want to first just kind of explain my understanding of the controversy that's surrounding you. And if I get anything wrong, you tell me. This all kind of started with some tweets involving Don Jr. and Elon Musk. We talked about it, where you expressed willingness to work with whoever if you can accomplish the things that you believe are worth accomplishing. We talked a little bit about whether it's realistic or naive to think these people will help us.
It's naive,
but that was sort of
naive
like
and stupid.
You appered with Charlie Kirk
because they hate us and they want to commit genocide
of that. But you've also been criticized
they want a one-party dictatorship like in China.
Like just that your presence there was the problem rather than your goals or being there. People are talking about a political 180 like Dave Rubin, which you've explained is not at all what this is.
Oh, sure, Cenk. Yeah, you and Anna have become in rave Dubin. Yeah, sure.
Talk today.
Yeah.
Conversations you had. With
remember when Karen Kasparian said she now understood where Dave Rubin was coming from?
Mm-hmm. Maybe Rave Dubin was right.
Yeah. Previously
maybe I should become a sellout. I know. I'll become a turf neo-Nazi and hang out with J.Q. Rowling.
Who's still jealous she won't be liked like Brett Allcroft was.
That is seeming way less friendly right now for reasons we can talk about. And a lot of people that say they are on the left don't like what you're up to. Is that a fair assessment of kind of where we are right now?
Yeah, I mean, the devil's in the details, and that's why we're having this conversation. But as a summary of where people think it stands, yeah, I think that's relatively right.
Here's my view after, knowing you for, I think, 16 or years or something like that at this point, reviewing the appearance, reviewing everything you've said. I don't think there's any problem with going on right-wing shows or appearing at America Fest in principle. I think we should try to talk to the other side. My goal would be try to poach their audiences, try to expose Trump's not really the populist he claims to be.
And make fun of him, too.
I think there's no issue there whatsoever. If I were to just jump to my concern, it would be all the evidence to me points to these are obviously not good partners in the things we want to achieve. I'll give you an example. Of course I want to cut military spending, Pentagon. You and I have talked about it. Why wouldn't we work with whoever wants to do that? At the same time, no matter what shows up on Twitter, it's hard to imagine that Pete Hegseth, Elise Stefanik, Huckabee, and Mike Waltz are ever going to be involved in actually doing that. And so for me, it's more about how realistic is this thing? And is there a risk that your presence through no fault of your own is used simply to degrade the left with no real shot at improving anything? That's where I would place my concern, bearing in mind that I agree with a lot of what you're doing and what you're saying.
Yeah. So let me
because you're a neoliberal dipshit and an enabler of the alt-right.
That I get why people are concerned. Like when you see a pattern, and we've seen Dave Rubin do it, and others, Tulsi Gabbard do it, etc.
Like you two and Anna.
What appears to be the first
like
step.
You and Anna are starting to do.
Goes to the second, the third, and the 18th step. And so, like, if you're on the left and you're just see us doing this peripherally, or you hear it on a different show, and they showed you a 15-second clip or something, I get why you'd be concerned, right?
Yep.
Now, I've been as clear as anyone can possibly be that is not the path we're taking. And I kind of tore Dave Rubin's head off when Piers Morgan suggested that we make up. I've got no interest in that. And And what's hilarious is people tune in to the Young Turks live at 6 o'clock Eastern every day, and they go, "Wait, I don't get it. Where's the right wing turn?" They're saying things that are like super progressive, populist, left wing. What the hell are these guys talking about?
And how come recently you've been losing a lot of subscribers, Cenk?
So I would ask you to not believe people with different incentives. What's really interesting, David, is that when I go on right wing shows and other comments, tons of comments that I get is, wait a minute,
20,000 in the last month. They've lost 10,000 on the 13th, 20,000 on December 16th. They've lost about
tens of thousands.
From the start of December to now, they've lost 40,000 subscribers on a YouTube channel that has 6 million subscribers. Isn't much,
but right-wing.
The numbers are they're starting to come down.
They're saying it because they say, I just saw 15-second clip of you saying something outrageous or something that I totally disagree with. That they
probably mad at unsubscribed on the last episode or whatever it was.
The left is not at all what I thought it was, right? Because the right wing shows have historically framed the left as the most extreme. That everyone on the left thinks that fill in the blank. That we should release all the prisoners and not do anything about crime and whatever thing you could imagine that's the most extreme
Cenk, you make
thing
fun
on the
of them
left.
for thinking that.
Almost all the right wing previously believed that was the entirety of the left. Everyone who voted for Biden, Kamala Harris, etc. So when they see us doing this, they're like, "Oh wow!" And that's ironically now the left wing shows are doing the same thing as the right wing shows did. Show 15-second clip and go, "You see a slight disagreement there. Oh, that's it. He's a Nazi. He's fascist, etc." So I understand people who were misled by that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you get to the real things that you're talking about, David, so how did this start, and what am I seeing that others aren't seeing potentially? Yeah. So it started when I started running against Biden in the primary just to try to knock him out. You remember, of course, that.
Which you couldn't be present, remember?
A lot of people said, Joe Biden is young and dynamic and the best Democrat to beat Trump. I mean, I had huge debates over that, including with Destiny and so many others, right? So we were 100% right about that. But what happened is I go on the right-wing shows and by the way, can I just tell you, why did I go on right-wing shows to try to knock Biden out of a Democratic primary? Because mainstream media never pays attention to the left. But if you say something on a right-wing show, mainstream media goes, "Oh, that's so important. Oh my God, I saw it on a right-wing show. It's so important," right? And I was able to bounce from there onto mainstream media, not me personally, but that idea, and it did help to knock Biden out, and that did help the Democratic Party. So if Kamala had run a better campaign, or if she just finished running a better campaign, we would have been able to beat Trump, etc. But so what I started seeing though when I went on there is, remember
the stats that only about a third of the voters from Biden jumped over to Trump. The other 2/3 stayed home.
Oh yeah, that reminds me. Something I was looking. I don't think I added on the topic list because I think I have so many other things to talk about. But there was a study that came out recently about people that voted for Biden but didn't vote for Kamala and stayed home. It was 30% of them said the reason why was because of genocide of the Palestinians. Maybe we were right when we told you why you all should have forced Israel to stop. But I think maybe Mike will cover when we get to the ceasefire.
Right-wing base is not the same base that it was before. And David, by now I figured out why. Okay, because in the old days they only watched Fox News, so you couldn't talk to them. They were Fox News talking point machines.
They still watch Fox, you idiot.
I heard from Hannity.
Yeah, they still watch Fuck the Jews, according to them.
But now they're getting their news not from angels, but they're getting their news from dozens of different shows, and some of them are anti-war, some of them are still pro-war, some are this, some are that. And now what I'm seeing in the right wing is they've begun to open up their mind in a way that we are not familiar with. So I go and tell the left wing,
they have not.
They have not. They think, "Oh, hell no. this guy's got to be the biggest sucker on planet Earth and super
Conservatives
naive.
are suckers,
The
Cenk.
right wingers I've known my whole life.
Hey, to be fair, Ben Shapiro's getting a lot more pushback against when he's calling for the nuking, when he's calling for the endless bombing of Palestine.
Well, you know why he's getting criticism.
Well, a lot of that is because he's Jewish, so
that's probably the only reason.
That and other thing. Well, I'm here to tell you.
It's not helping.
You're seeing it wrong, okay? And so there's a lot of populists in those hills, but because
they're fake populists, Cenk.
They're fake populists, unfortunately.
They're not based and truthful like we are.
They agree with us on it.
Exactly,
It doesn't
yeah.
mean that they are going to turn around and be like, "Oh my God, you're right. We should have full trans rights." No, what that means is
No,
right
that's
wing,
right.
like populism. The where it intersects is anti-war, anti-corruption, and by the way, even on
Cenk,
that
they're
stuff,
against
They're
none of those
pro-war and
things.
pro-corruption,
Trump is perfectly
Cenk.
corrupt,
And they're
they voted for him
pro-war, like
anyway.
Trump.
But by the way, so is
They
Kamala Harris and Joe
war.
Biden.
They want nuclear weapons.
I know that breaks a lot of people's hearts, but they've gorged on billions of dollars in corporate cash. Establishment Democrats and establishment Republicans invented corruption, right? And they bathed in corruption. So yeah, of course Trump is also corrupt, but at least that base has an instinct of being anti-corrupt.
Cenk, they support Trump because they don't care about corruption. How about that one? They
all
don't care.
A bunch of the corporations have flat out said that they're going to stop hiring black. They're going to not just thing with top DEI programs. They're going to stop hiring women and minorities and black people because Trump won. They think they can get more money if they stop hiring scary black people.
Remember I told you all for years that corporations would get, if they can get one penny by being racist and all that, they would instantly do it? Looks like we were proven right once again.
When I go on the shows, I say, hey guys, for example, Elon Musk. Remember, he's a donor. He's Trump's largest donor. And they go, well, yeah, that's true. And remember how you should be...
They didn't care at all about him being a donor until
they didn't care.
They didn't care until
they never have cared and they never will care.
The only time they even gave a crap about Elon is when he said he supports H-1B visas and all that. And even
exactly.
And then eventually they're going to forget about it just like that.
Wary of the donor class.
Because you're all morons.
Yeah, that's true. In the old days, David, they wouldn't have said that's true. They were like, no way, our donors are angels.
They'll forget it because they have their next culture war issue, like trying to stop interracial couples from being able to marry.
Right?
Like Tennessee's trying to do again.
Dynamic. Like there's so many
trying to
things
get interracial marriage, same-sex, they're already good trying to get same-sex marriage to the Supreme Court to get that turned over, and they're already at the state level starting to plan to try and get interracial marriage turned over.
Yeah.
Overturned in the courts.
Because you all are evil.
You're helping them or legitimizing them is absurd.
Because they're white supremacists and Nazis.
There's sort of like a three-part thing that I think will build to the most important aspect.
Remember again that at a certain point as you go up the authoritarian scale, left and right just disappears.
God, the fact that we got another 17 minutes of these two. Ugh.
So first of all, I think you are doing an awesome job at correctly identifying something that's a major problem for the left and that explains a lot of the right's success, which is they aren't doing, at least right now, these toxic purity tests the way that some on the left do. You've identified the right.
First thing right off the bat, where they're both wrong. How about that? No, Pakman, there is no purity test on the left.
Social inequality,
the only purity testing are neoliberal Democrats trying to keep us progressives from winning. How about that one?
If you agree with them on 5% and you're kind of
nice not to disagree against both of them.
They welcome it.
Yeah.
If you disagree with 95%.
Point out that they're all idiots.
A lot of the opposite of that is happening on the left. I think that's spot on, and I think it's awesome that you've identified that. I do want to talk a little bit about the whole look at how they
know
neoliberal
shill.
During your appearance with Charlie Kirk that got some attention and that
God, did you see Kyle's video with Cenk with Charlie Kirk? Oh my God, I'm surprised Kyle didn't die from that.
On as well as, look, they're booing Mitch McConnell and they're booing Dick Cheney. That you wouldn't have seen that.
Imagine.
I'm skeptical about reading too much into that for the following reason. I don't think they have any real idea why
they're booing or they're not booing. Or what I mean is the following. Trump and Charlie Kirk right now are benefiting from saying we're different from the establishment, we're different from McConnell and Cheney or whatever.
Even though they are the establishment.
Today, at next week's AmFest, Charlie Kirk just leads the crowd in a cheer of Mitch McConnell. We got him back, guys. I don't think there's anything real about that. I think it's just something that they've decided we're going to say to create a distinction, whether there is a difference or not. So I'm worried about reading too much into they booed McConnell, because next week they'll cheer him if someone says to Trump, now we cheer McConnell. You may agree, you may disagree. Let me then do the part 3 of kind of where my mind is on this. I would argue that whether or not they cheer McConnell or whatever, even if we agree about the problem, the risk of the populist rhetoric as a uniting force is that the solutions are different, even if we agree on the problem. So I'll give you an example.
Like Vosh always kept pointing out to us. It doesn't matter if they agree on the problems existed. I don't care if they claim to be anti-corruption or anti-war or whatever. They do not support us on the solutions. So if they don't support our progressive solutions, then I don't care.
Their last their solutions are killing minorities.
Our solution is taxing the rich.
Destroying fascist dictatorships and grifting money.
Corruption, progressive support anti-corruption policies like taxing the rich and all that. Conservatives want to blame the Jews and minorities and women for everything. Yep. We have different solutions to the same problem. I don't want their solutions. Their solutions are evil. How about that one? If you don't agree with progressive policies, then fuck off.
Exactly.
Some of the people at AmFest, we're worried about the power of the establishment and elites, the recalcitrant centers of power that are corrupt and we're sick of them and all of that. We would identify the problem with almost the exact same language that the crowd at AmFest would. The problem is when you say, okay, left-wing populist, what's your solution? We talk about social democracy, curbing corporate power, using regulations. They will still say the solution is tax cuts for the rich and corporations and all the same stuff. So my instinct is, and tell me if
he's wrong, Cenk. Oh, he's wrong, huh?
My thought is, even if we really were in agreement about the problem, once we get to solutions, we're not even at all on the same page.
No, I think you are wrong, and it's very.
He's right, Cenk. So
because
he's right. Coke sees more dilate L plus ratio,
and the fact that we had to say David Pakman's right. Oh, I feel nauseous.
Yeah, God, I hate that.
Media and political ecosystem that we all grew up in.
So thank you, Cenk, for us having to defend Pakman. We really appreciate that.
No way. Yeah, I hate that. Come on, dude, you're better than this. All they're
ever going to do is corporate tax cuts and tax
Who paid you?
So here's where.
Rafe Dubin!
He totally did. He totally did.
First of all, on Mitch McConnell and Dick Cheney, no, they.
Well, maybe it's Hassan.
Oh, it explains why Cenk got so bad too.
Tell me.
So first of all, on Mitch McConnell and Dick Cheney, no, they loathe them. You guys are wrong in thinking that it's a trick.
It is a trick, Cenk. Republicans don't care. They don't care. They don't hate McConnell or Cheney. They don't.
Thousands of MAGA guys. They're not.
And if they do, it's over some petty shit that they're not Trump's boyfriend.
They only hate him because they're anti-Trump. That is it.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly.
Have you ever met a MAGA guy?
Yeah.
I'm surrounded by him, Cenk. I'm surrounded by dipshit Trumpsters. How about that one?
And Mitch McConnell's also fucking he's one of the also being puppeted by the dark side of the force as well.
Like all conservatives.
Now it's
well, the political ones at least. Many of the really old ones are at least.
They're as evil as illagers and stupider than nitwit villagers.
Yep, they're on board.
And they're jealous of their green clothes.
No, they won't.
Yep, pretty much.
And they call them anti-Semitic slurs because they're nose.
Let me explain why I think that they won't. Okay. So, look, in the beginning, it starts exactly as you're saying, David, which is Trump goes, I don't like Mitch McConnell, for whatever crazy reason popped into his head at the time. Yep. And his wife is Coco Chow, and weirdo racist things against Elaine Chao, right?
Yep.
Now that I like Elaine Chao, I think she's terrible establishment figure, but you don't need to go racist on it.
Yeah, so, the problem isn't that she's Asian.
Yeah, that's definitely not the problem, right? So, so I know where it started, and so you're not wrong about that. But now they genuinely hate the corruption.
No, they do not, Cenk.
No, they do not. They love the corruption.
They don't. When I get into the longer,
they love the corruption.
Gee, I guess now you know why I was raging mad. Watched this like 4 times working on that Minecraft monument. Remember, in my main world.
Mm-hmm.
4 times watching this, including one of them with Dylan Burns watching. He was raging like me.
This was really tiny, right?
Not surprised.
Cenk, don't piss off us Marylanders because we're a friendly bunch, but we get mad, and you don't want to see us get mad.
Conversation on Patrick McDavid or Tim Poolshaw or whatever. They all go, no. I know he takes $1 billion from corporate donors, and
then why do you support him then?
For the last
exactly. Why the fuck do you support him?
You claim to be anti-corruption, yet you support him.
For that 15-20 years,
seems like a bullshit.
Because they love the corruption.
Bring back democracy.
They want to be corrupt.
Whenever I talk to Democrats and I told them, well, Nancy Pelosi taking $1 billion is also corruption. They go, no way, she's an angel and you're a monster.
It is corrupt. That's why she
No, Cenk. The only people that would say that about Pelosi are either Democratic loyalists or like the neoliberals, Democrats in power. Most progressives and Democrats hate Pelosi. Like, no, I don't want to hear this crap.
For saying that. And whenever I went to talk to the right wing, they'd say, yeah, Pelosi's terrible, but Mitch McConnell's an angel and you're a monster for saying he isn't. Now when I go to the right wing, they go, no, you're totally right. And it's not just because he's
but because he's doesn't love Donald Trump enough.
Yeah, that's it.
That's why they hate him.
Guess what? If he sucked up the Trump, all of a sudden they would love him.
Donald Trump.
Exactly from this donor class.
Because they're cultist morons.
And Dick Cheney, they genuinely hate the wars.
They do not hate the wars, Cenk, you moron. They support imperialists.
They love the war.
They support...
Several does this, what? And 24 Republican politicians that have called for Palestine to be fucking nuked.
Let's see. Trump threatening Mexico, Canada, Greenland, and Panama Canal. So, Panama, 4 countries on that list. And may I add 2 of them are not only allies, but NATO allies too? Maybe you guys are idiots and you actually support imperialism. Which I, as an actual base anti-imperialist, unlike tankies and dumb leftists, am against that too.
Exactly.
Now they're both mad at me.
I know that is so different than the Republican Party we grew up with that loved wars, right? So now when you go to the
they still love war.
The Hispanics of the world, David, that's where you get into a really interesting dynamic. Now, in the beginning, Trump is not his base. Trump's not going to come out and go, oh my God, guys, I've seen the light, right? And I'm not going to serve Elon Musk or Miriam Adelson or Tim Mellon or any of these guys or the oil companies.
They're the ones who because they're the ones who got him into power.
Maybe drill because the oil companies gave him a ton of money, gave domestic policy to Elon Musk and foreign policy to Miriam Adelson. So why does Stefanik and Hegseth and all those guys, they're hardcore. Mike Wall's a giant neocon.
Yes.
Why are they in the Trump administration? Because Trump's doing what every politician does, kissing the ass of his donors, and that's how he's going to start. And if his base doesn't challenge him, that's how he's going to end.
Did the base challenge him last time? Like, what evidence do we have?
Yeah, Cenk, they didn't challenge him.
That's what I'm getting to. So, David,
they'll never challenge him because they're evil and they love the corruption. They love the war.
As long as Trump loves it. And they'll always love him forever.
It was a long time ago.
Exactly.
The base didn't challenge him at all.
They're worse than you, Bell, in the Japanese version of GX.
Okay, well, if Trump said something, they
just saying something because she was a yandere.
Right? Yep. Now, when I go on those shows, or
I've just thought of something. Yandere Simulator, but you get to play as you, Bell.
I was just about to make a reference to Yandere Simulator 2.
Hey, you know that Rubio, Stefanik, Walz, and Huckabee are neocons, and they're going to try to drive you into war. Wall of thousands of comments. You're totally right.
They're going to try. They're going to be like, "Oi, you want this? We want you to start World War III. We want you to bomb every country on the planet."
Got it. We trust Trump. Let's see how it
America
goes.
first, am I right, people?
But we got an eye out for it. Like
and more like only America, more like only country allowed to exist is America.
Again, Age of History Free is not real life, people. Get off of Steam.
Yep.
Leave that game only to me because you all suck. I'm good at it.
Totally aware that they're neocons, and they don't like it.
They don't care, Cenk.
They never have cared. They never will care.
Meathead and
remember,
and they like the aggro.
You get an idea of what they're like if you play Yandere Simulator.
Cenk, they're so anti-war that when Trump threatens Mexico, Canada, Greenland, and Panama Canal, what do? Oh, they fucking defended it and make memes about it because they are actual imperialists. That's why they love Putler so much.
Military part.
Yep.
But they're not going to like the neocon part. And if I'm right about any of this,
they love the neocon part.
Where the base.
That's part of why they voted. They voted for it.
No neocons support us. Oh, really? More than freaking Kamala. How about that one, pal?
Says to Trump.
Yeah,
no,
which is saying something, considering it's Kamala.
Tell you to help Israel invade Iran. No.
I'm not even sure about this, and I think this is really. I don't know.
No, here's the thing. I got to pause here. In order to get to Iraq, they got to go through Syria, and in order to get through Syria, they got to fight the Neo-Ottoman Empire.
And I just
who also wants Syria.
We're on agreement on the facts. I'll give you a counterexample to what you're talking about. Yesterday, Trump does this crazy press conference at Mar-a-Lago. During this press conference, it was like 30 minutes long, he suggested taking Greenland and the Panama Canal with military force, taking Canada with economic force, and unleashing hell on Gaza, or allowing hell to be unleashed. That doesn't sound very anti-war.
And
when
Trumpsters
you look
defend
on
it all cause.
and everywhere else, it's
exactly.
people defending it, memes about all of the Americas in an American flag. They kind of seem to be just lining up behind whatever he says.
Whatever Trump says, they support.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because I dove in more, I'm seeing something that others aren't, and that's why
you're seeing nothing because you're as blind as a wart.
Am I wrong about the reaction to yesterday's crazy
you're
tirade?
Halfway wrong.
I'm halfway. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I know I'm out on a limb here because believing that the right wing is going to turn on Trump on specific issues where they have disagreement when they've never done it before.
Yeah, Cenk, if they've never done it before, maybe it's a sign that they're never going to turn on him. How about that one?
Yeah. I'm taking a risk by saying they're going to do that, right?
I question whether there is disagreement.
There is.
There isn't.
No, there's not, Cenk.
So,
if there is, they don't care.
Eyes and ears.
They don't care.
And you've seen me go out.
Remember, they're playing Yandere Simulator.
Before, right? Where I said in 2013, I
stay away from Senpai.
3 years.
Yep. Stay away from Senpai, or we'll stab you to death. 3,700
Senpai, notice me.
Yeah, I see that disagreement. So, for example, on what you mentioned.
Notice the pennies I pick every day to change my stats.
And so he goes, oh yeah, Miriam, like the Palestinians aren't slaughtered enough. I'll slaughter them even more, right? As long as you keep the money coming, right?
I'll get into a war with the Neo-Ottoman Empire.
Again, Age of History Free, not real life, people.
His fantasies about buying Greenland or invading in Panama, etc.
And you'll never be better than me.
The first reaction that folks are going to have is, we're defending Trump. And especially when the left attacks him, no, he doesn't mean invading Greenland, he means buying
yes, he
Greenland.
does.
He doesn't mean
he does. He does. And
then when he does And then when he does, you're all going to defend it.
Right? And it's not like 50-50.
And then you're going to get more on Cenk.
That is going, no, you're right. We didn't say invade any countries. We said anti-war.
You don't give a shit. How about that?
That kernel
nobody gives a shit.
Except us.
We're not even at day one.
Exactly.
And when
because we're base chads, unlike you chose.
The number one thing they say is, cut it out. He's obviously
bluffing, right? That's true.
You're hurting his chance of bluffing when you say that he's definitely not going to do it, right? So,
imagine your main defense of Trump is, he doesn't mean that. He's not going to do anything. Imagine how sad that sounds.
Yeah, that is.
He will definitely lose half his base.
No, he will not, Cenk.
Right?
He will not. No, he won't, Chunk.
The only people that will turn on him are people that already hate him. His base are going to love him no matter what.
Anti-war. So, but that's not going to happen because he's not going to do that. He's bluffing, right? But look, this is where I think the rubber hits the road. and this is now I'm really out on a limb. Okay.
Okay.
I think his base is going to turn on Israel. And,
no, they're not, Cenk. They're not going to turn on Israel. Even if they're anti-Semitic, they're not going to turn on because they hate the Palestinians more. And whoever Trump says he supports, they'll support 100% instantly.
So,
pretty much.
He goes, I'm going to give Israel another $30 billion, and I'm going to
they will give it if Trump does it.
At some point, MAGA's going to go, no, that's enough, brother, man.
No,
that's
they're
enough.
not, Cenk.
We said America first, not Israel.
Exactly.
And
they're American last.
I think they're going to turn on
like
that,
all Trumpsters and
conservatives.
conservatives.
The right wings never turned on Israel. The left wings never really turned on Israel. No one's
Cenk, yes, us left have turned on Israel. But it's just the Democrats in power who are not left at all.
They're not allowed to do something.
They're not left wings, so they're centrist at
let's see what
best.
happens. So
they agree. They just don't want. They just don't want Palestine to be nuked.
The unprecedented thing.
They want it to be bombed into prehistory, but not nuked.
Listen, my best assessment in having reviewed all of the evidence and in talking to you here is I think it's clear you're not doing a Dave Rubin. I think your heart's in
Pakman,
the
you're
right
being
place.
way too generous.
You
know that?
Way too charitable.
Here's my
there.
prediction. I'm not.
They absolutely are.
I think in a few
it's
years
just,
you'll say,
they're pulling a Dave Rubin. It's just not. They're not doing it as Dave Rubin did.
I was a little naive with my expectations. And I could be wrong. You could be wrong. We don't know. I think if there's a fault
both
here,
wrong.
it's we've seen you. You're right. It's been a long time, and for 8-9 years, almost 10 years now, since Trump came down the escalator and said Mexicans are rapists, the highest value has been they ultimately do support whatever Trump wants. They don't really care about free speech or freedom or family values or money.
Right to your face, Cenk.
Exactly.
Imagine Pakman imagine getting humiliated by Pakman, Cenk.
Yeah,
that's sad.
But we are on the same page that it hasn't been
that is
Right?
embarrassing.
I think that part we do agree on.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, look, I could list you dozens of examples where they say they're against cancel culture, and then they'll say, "Well, look, we should cancel them," right?
Yeah, because they don't give a shit about it.
But they don't give the same thing.
They never have, and they
we're
never
against cancel
will.
Culture, but if you criticize Israel on a college campus, we're going to arrest you and take away your diploma.
Because conservatives are anti-free speech.
Right? So,
Yep.
I mean, but I
Because
can give
they've
you
never
dozens of other
supported free
examples.
speech.
You're protesting.
Yeah, as I
oil
said,
companies.
never have and never will.
What's that? Your fan fiction of Pokemon is pornographic? Banned!
Pipelines. We're going to pass a law in Florida that says we could run
What's
you
this
over
blasphemous
in our cars, right?
manga with this
it doesn't
based
get any more
Christian
cancel culture
progressive
than murdering
girl?
someone with their
Banned!
cars because they protested an oil
And then we'll
company,
rape her
right?
because she's Japanese.
Freedom of speech. They take away freedom of speech all the time. So I
LGBT
totally
things
agree that the last
in this Star Wars story, banned.
LGBT characters in My Blossom in Summer? Banned!
9.5 years,
Yep.
they have not shown what I am seeing that they're going to do in the future. And I totally agree with you, David, that we're going to come back 2-3 years from now and see how this went and see, hey, was I right that there was this?
No, you're not, Cenk. You're going to look like a moron, and we're going to laugh at you in 3 years.
Against Trump,
Yep.
and actually had a mind of their
We're
own.
going to laugh at you because you deserve it.
Yep, Cenk, we tried your strategy. You went the opposite end.
It didn't work.
Neither of our sides really worked. But we're not going to try that again.
As opposed to being in a
Yeah.
cult for Trump. And I get if you're
Just
on the
got
left,
punched
that
in
you're
the
like,
face
no
for
way,
it.
No
We'll have our final warning with you Trumpsters at the end, man. You're not going to like hearing it.
Yep.
way they're in a cult.
Exactly.
But guys, remember, we all live in bubbles. The Trump people have been in a massive bubble for a long, long time, right?
Yes.
But we
And they will
also
remain
live
in that bubble no matter
and our
what.
bubble says if you disagree with any of us 5%, we kick you out of that bubble and we call you a racist and a fascist and every word in the dictionary.
Trumpsters do
and then
that.
we go, oh my God, how did we lose the popular vote?
do.
You lost the popular vote because you pushed everyone out.
Yep.
Okay.
No,
No,
Cenk.
No,
Trump got the popular vote because Democrats lost. Because
Yep.
Kamala just wasn't a good candidate. Biden really just sucked, and that's why. If he ran an actual progressive that actually defended Democratic policies and all that, we would have easily won.
Denying that, I'm with you.
Yep.
100.
And likewise, when Trump
And
fucked up,
if Kamala had actually distinguished herself from Biden more by pushing for Israel to stop their annihilation of Gaza, that would have been She could have gotten over the line that way.
And then in 4 years, when Trump fucks up everything, we're going to obliterate whoever replaced him because everyone's going to realize Trump sucks, and hopefully permanently.
110% on that. That's for sure.
That is if there's still a election by then.
MAGA doesn't realize we're anti-corruption. The left is anti-corruption. They don't even realize the left is anti-war
because they lie, Cenk.
They lie because they love war.
I'm going to go on a college campus tour with them, right? So the establishment is pro-war, and the Democratic Party, unfortunately, has become more establishment. Right?
No, Cenk,
right?
no.
So they look at it and they're like, they're super surprised that the left thinks is anti-war, anti-corruption, and all these things.
We are anti-war and anti-corruption, like Republicans.
When I talk to them about family leave, Patrick Bet-David polled his audience. 75% of his audience said yes, paid family leave.
But then will they support when it comes up? No.
No, never will.
I don't care if you say support. If you don't actually push through, I don't care.
That's arguably a conservative principle. I think it's a giant progressive principle. We know it's a giant progressive principle. Yep. But that's where the unity can come. But you can't pass any of these things, or even have hope of passing any of these things, if you tell the people who are in charge, who won the popular vote, we're going to hate all of you.
And also, Cenk, they didn't even get the majority. It was 49.9%.
We're never going to work with you. We're never even going to talk to you. So we have no hope of ever winning those votes back, because you can't win them back if you're not talking to them, right?
Cenk, they're not going to change.
They'll never change.
We don't live in a bubble.
Like I said, Yandere Simulator.
And our bubble needs to be.
Read about Yandere Simulator sometime, and you'll understand their mindset.
The has stopped being open-minded, and what I say on Young Turks all the time is, our community is open-minded and open-hearted, right?
You guys are
open-minded. My brains are so open-minded. They're so open-minded, their brains are falling out.
On the prize. The prize is policy. If you pass policy, you improve actual people's lives. If you don't, all of us in media and politics are just playing ego games. Who's bigger? Who's this? Who's more pure? Who's the one that represents blah, 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 blah. That's all about ego. But actually getting policy passed affects your life. And you're not.
But Republicans don't want to pass policies to help us.
They don't want anything that will meaningfully help.
We know that won't work. That's for sure. Listen, Cenk.
Thank God that is over now. And hopefully, Pakman and Cenk, hopefully won't see you again for a while, because I don't want to see you two again. So yeah, we gotta say about Cenk and Pakman going at it.
Pakman won comprehensively. Yeah. Cenk doesn't really know. Cenk is either naive. He's really naive. He has to be.
He's a grifter now. Remember?
Yeah. He's gone down the road of his nephew and Rave Dubin
Demi Jor.
Yes, and Demi Jor and Karen Kaspastikan.
All right, so I'll make this abundantly clear to you, idiot Trumpsters that are watching. It doesn't matter if we agree on the same problems. Yes, America is pro-war and pro-corruption. There's only one solution. Are you ready? You have two options. You either support progressive policies, or you can fuck right off. Either you support our policies, or fuck off. We are not interested in your solutions, because your solutions suck ass! Have I made it clear? Have I made it clear, people?
I think you have.
Alright.
I think you have.
And also, fuck you, Pakman and Cenk. I hope to not see you again for a while. Oh my god.
Yes.
So now,
better not see them again for a while.
So now,
they're getting destroyed by an actual lefty.
Yeah. Alright, now on to the next topic.
And that is... Hamas-Israeli ceasefire.
So, of course, recently, finally, there's been a ceasefire agreement between Hamas and Israel, which hopefully would end their genocide of the Palestinians. But I doubt that will happen, but we'll have to see on that. And of course, Mike did a video on it, and supposedly, even I don't think this is still warranted whatsoever, apparently Trump is claiming credit for this, even though he's not in power, so he should not be able to get any credit whatsoever. But
he's a narcissist. What do you expect?
A fucking moron. So let's see this ceasefire agreement, and hopefully it'll last.
You just saw people in Gaza cheering in the streets and thanking God because after 15 long, nightmarish months, it might finally be over. A ceasefire between Hamas and Israel has reportedly been reached, which is set to go into effect on January 19th, one day before Donald Trump is sworn into office. And I'm currently in a state of disbelief, and it's kind of difficult to collect my thoughts because I'm still shocked by this information. You know, when I saw the headline that Jake Sullivan was on CNN saying a ceasefire is near, I literally laughed because we've been hearing that now for more than a year, and it just seemed like it was never going to happen. So I'm not really sure how to process this information, and to be honest, I'm pretty cautious about getting too hopeful here, and for good reason, which we'll talk about, but just knowing that the people of Gaza will have some relief, even if it's temporary,
or at least you hope,
just to see the looks on their faces. That is really encouraging.
Because you can never trust
now, with that
Bibi,
being said,
ever.
They've lost
and
everything.
Oh yeah, and you Israelis better vote his ass out immediately now if this is definitely over. His ass goes. End discussion.
So the world needs to move quickly to address the humanitarian crisis if this ceasefire is actually successful.
And ban him forever.
Keep fighting for an end to the occupation altogether.
Ban him
But with
for
that being said, here's a
years.
general outline of
No
the deal
Nazis
for
allowed.
Al Jazeera.
No Zio-Nazis allowed in power. How about that one?
Exactly.
Israeli military will withdraw to within 2,297 feet
No
inside
Zio-Nazis
Gaza.
in power.
Israel
No
will
Nazis
release
Zio-Nazis should be allowed to even run.
How about we ship him? How about we do what he will love absolutely the most? Send him to Russia so he can fight Ukrainians on the front.
Palestinian prisoners. Palestinian
Then
groups
he'll
will
get
release
and then he'll get cooked by
33
North
Israeli
Koreans
captives.
have been recently.
Israel will allow injured people in Gaza to travel to receive medical treatment. Also, Israel will open the Rafah crossing with Egypt 7 days after the start of the first stage. Last but not least, Israeli forces will begin to pull back from Gaza's border with Egypt, known as the Philadelphia Corridor, to withdraw from it completely in later stages. Now, at the time that I record this video, some details are still being worked out, and this is just the first phase. Phase 2, where more hostages will be released by both sides, isn't expected to be negotiated until some point during Phase 1, although as it stands right now, it really isn't a guarantee that we'll even see a Phase 2. We'll have to wait and see, but more on that later. Now, as for the deal itself, well, as Jeremy Scahill of Dropsite News reports, the terms of the deal being negotiated are largely consistent with what was on the table last May when outgoing President Joe Biden first announced it. Biden allowed Netanyahu to steamroll him for months, rewarding Israel with billions of dollars in arms transfers and political support after rejecting that ceasefire deal.
And that probably cost Kamala too, you fucking moron.
Yep, that I would actually confidently say yes, that cost Kamala Harris the election.
That's why you tell Israel to stop instantly. How about that one?
Fire deal has been on the...
Sorry, I mean, yeah, 10-7 was evil. What you did afterwards does not justify it, just like our reaction to 9/11 doesn't justify what we did. You have limits. As the
Jewish media said, Hamas's terrorist attack on 10/7 was fucked. On the 7th to 10th was fucked, and a war crime and illegal under international law. Israel's collectivist response is fucked and a war crime and illegal under international law. And all of this is happening under a greater scope of occupation and apartheid. That is also fucked and illegal and crime under international law.
But see, nuance is too hard for conservatives and dumb leftists.
Exactly,
only
because they don't think.
The question is,
imagine not thinking.
Well, Evan Hill of the Washington Post tweeted out this excerpt from a report from Susanna George of the Washington Post, which reads, a diplomat briefed on the ceasefire negotiations between Israel and Hamas credited progress in the talks in part to the influence of President-elect Donald Trump, saying it was the first time there has been real pressure on the Israeli side to accept a deal.
Honestly, I could imagine Trump being like, hey, I've got other things I want to do, so can we get this over and done with so I don't get distracted?
Yeah, so if you didn't hear, first off, Trump is not supposed to be in part of this whatsoever since he's not the president and all that. He should have no say in it whatsoever. And also, according to this, he pressured Israel to accept the deal. What? I expect him to do it to Hamas, but Israel? I find it hard to believe.
And that last sentence is stunning. Holy shit. What a way to go out if you're Joe Biden. Netanyahu has refused to accept the ceasefire this entire time.
We should also mention that that Benjamin Netanyahu is pro-Trump, so
be no consequences whatsoever from Biden for his recalcitrance. But all of a sudden, Trump steps in, applies a little bit of pressure, and we've got a deal. Really? That is fucking
Well, remember that
wild.
Joe Biden that Mr. That Bibi Hitler Yahoo loves Donald Trump. Absolutely loves him.
Has an orgy with Putler and Pooh Bear G.
Now, if it sounds a little bit too good to be true, you're not wrong. But putting that aside for now,
Nazis in
it
a
is
hot tub.
Beyond humiliating for Joe Biden. I mean, the extent to which he has no shame can never ever be overstated. I'm speechless, honestly. Those of us on the left have tried to warn Joe Biden for months.
Over a year.
That Netanyahu and Trump were in cahoots. He had to apply actual pressure on Netanyahu to get him to budge. He had to cut off weapons. Otherwise, there would never be a ceasefire. Because Netanyahu was waiting to see if Trump would get elected. And guess what? It paid off. Trump got elected. And Netanyahu handed Trump a major victory, and Biden now looks like a chump. Unbelievable. I don't even know.
Marjorie Taylor Greene seditious current greed looks more reasonable than Biden now.
It's just so insane.
How fucking insane
both
is
Donald
that?
Trump and Joe Biden
seditious
are taking
Karen
credit for this. So
Greene
over on Truth
herself.
Social,
because she's too busy being a Karen.
Trump claimed it happened because of his win in
know
November.
that now she
Meanwhile,
looks
go
more
on Twitter
reasonable
and you
than
see Kamala
Biden.
Harris crediting Joe Biden for this ceasefire. Now, as for Joe Biden himself, well, he was asked who deserves credit between him and Donald Trump, and his response was, we'll just say, pretty indignant.
Thank you. Brooks, credit for this, Mr. President, you or Trump?
Trump.
Is that a joke?
There's a little bit of credit.
Thank you.
Wow. Listen, when it comes down to it, I don't care how it got done or who did it. I just care that it happened. So I'm not going to automatically be against something that's objectively good happening if Donald Trump did it. If all of a sudden he chooses to go full Bernie Sanders and says he supports Medicare for all, I'm not going to be like, actually, I don't support Medicare for all because Trump does support it. I care about policy, not politicians. Trump's not going to do that. But I mean, the point that I'm making is I'm not going to, scoff at good things happening for partisan reasons. Having said that, though, let's be very, very clear. So the timing about this tells us a lot about this deal. It'll go into effect on Joe Biden's last full day as president. At any time during the last 15 months, he could have conditioned aid and actually applied real pressure to Netanyahu, but he refused to do that. So after hearing
Because
for
he's
a
a
year
Nazi
that a ceasefire was just around the
terrorist who despises Arabs.
And he's brain dead and old.
corner,
Yep.
the question
he's
is,
being puppeted
well,
by the dark side
why
of the
now?
force, so
like
of
the
course
why
he
did it
is.
happen on Biden's
Yep,
last
like they
day in
all
office? I mean,
All
if
the
this
old-
is
all the
fundamentally
old
the same
bastards
deal
are.
that he originally negotiated back in May of last year, if he is responsible and does want to take credit, isn't it embarrassing that it's only happening now, right before Trump is inaugurated? I mean, why, if Biden is to take credit, is this happening now? What changed? What's different? Why did Israel suddenly have
Because
a change
Trump
of heart?
is getting up
See,
because
here's the
Trump
thing.
was elected.
Joe Biden is full of shit. And objectively speaking, I'm sorry, based on the current information that we have, Trump does get credit for this. I'm not going to be a hack and say, oh, actually, Biden was playing 4D chess. No. It just seems like Occam's razor.
I would like to
here.
hear I would like to hear what Trump could have done to make Bibi War Netanyahu change his mind before I would give him any sort of credit.
Win the election. Win
Trump
the election and talk to her.
Because he wants Netanyahu to kill the Palestinians as much as Netanyahu wants to do. So I find it a little hard to believe how all of a sudden he made them stop their genocide. I'm going to need a lot more evidence or whatever.
And
I think it might be that he wanted to.
So he gets credit.
Because he wants him to prepare for war with the Neo-Ottoman Empire.
Or Iran.
At least temporarily. But with that being said, the ceasefire that Trump helped to facilitate
you're right. Because they want him to prepare for war, to start World War III by nuking Iran and bombing China.
So yeah, I'm going to need a little bit more evidence before I give him any sort of credit, people. Sorry.
At a great cost.
Yeah.
Because of his involvement. So before you all give him too much credit, which he does deserve credit for this, there's a caveat, right? So Netanyahu only agreed to hand Trump a win and end the genocide, at least temporarily, because he's getting something very big in return, specifically the West Bank. Now, in an interview with Dropsite News, Gaza analyst Mohammed Shahada gives us a lot of context. And we're going to watch a 3-minute clip. As you're going to see, this is packed with information, so listen closely. But what he says here is really hard to digest.
Your assessment of how significant Trump's interventions have been since he became the president-elect?
Monumental. So until recently, mediators would tell me that everything would change if Biden would only name and shame Netanyahu, call him out publicly for rejecting and refusing the ceasefire repeatedly since May last year. So basically, everything that was changed is just Trump jumping in and doing that, nothing more. All he needed to do was just apply a little bit of pressure on Netanyahu and say, get a deal done. Netanyahu got it done immediately. Whereas for Biden, as a senior Arab diplomat put it recently to me, she said, Biden is just ideological. Trump is transactional. He's a businessman. Biden, his heart is in it. He's fully devoted to supporting Israel. And he sees any pressure on Israel
he's fully supportive of Israel,
his legacy.
Of Israel nuking Palestine.
He wants his legacy to be
because he's a Zion-Nazi terrorist.
Who plays too much Asian history free.
Yeah, he needs to be put in front. He needs to be put in front of the Hague, and when convicted, executed publicly. Public execution in Guantanamo Bay.
Don't forget Trump too.
To win.
Oh yeah, no, even Trump better have Trump and Biden be the two that
and Putler
have to be like
and Bouvergie and Netanyahu, all of them. All Nazis must die.
Modi, Aung San Suu Kyi,
Erdogan,
the Trump's
Erdogan, yep.
Kim,
undoubted. In the very last minutes of the negotiations, Netanyahu tried to maneuver by insisting on a couple hundred meters of the buffer zone. So now it's 700 meters. He wanted it to be 900 instead. And then Steve Witkoff had to press him and get that compromise out of him, and other issues as well.
Which I can tell you now is annoying the Neo-Ottoman Empire.
Other hand, we are getting reports from Israeli media that are saying that Trump gave Netanyahu a gift bag in return, and that gift bag includes a promise to allow Israel to violate the ceasefire and provide them with cover for it. So in other words, to resume the war in Gaza as soon as the first phase is
genocide as soon as possible.
Phase 2. Just getting,
as I said, possibly even letting off and doing that, while letting off a nuclear bomb.
All Israeli settlers, extremists, settler organizations,
Israeli shady thinks the Palestinians are
ultra-mentioned.
Subhuman. That's what he believes. He does not believe they're human beings, and he thinks they deserve to be.
Palestinians are ultra-mentioned, and we want Lebensraum.
Individuals.
Pretty much. That's what he wants.
A major chunk,
again,
a major
play Asian history free. Don't do real life.
So that might be the case. It checks out. The other thing is that this morning, until the very last minute, we're getting reports from Netanyahu saying that he's telling Bezalel Smotrich, no, don't worry. It's only going to be a pause. It's not the end of the war. We will resume the war again. And in return, Smotrich asking for, quote, forcing Gazan migration as one of his conditions, is that even if there is a ceasefire, even if the war ends, you need to maintain conditions in Gaza as hell on earth, make it as uninhabitable as possible, ban concrete and cement from going in like Israel did in 2014, prevent reconstruction, and then people will leave, will have no option but to leave or face death by starvation, cold, or disease. So that's pretty much it.
Okay, there's a lot there, but first and foremost, even though this is a ceasefire, Israel has no plans to let Gazans return to their homes because we all know that they want that land for themselves. And an ominous thing that he said was that Trump gave Netanyahu a gift bag for agreeing to this deal. And that includes presumably 3 things. 1, a promise that Israel can violate the ceasefire and the United States will provide cover for them while they violate the ceasefire after a certain point. 2, lifting sanctions on Israeli settlers. And 3, major annexation of land in the West Bank. How major? We don't know.
All of
so
it.
This appears to be
and also giving Israel the tools, including weapons can fire so far that they hit China in preparation for the US and Israel to start World War III.
And of course, also probably try and annex more of Syria.
Annex
all of the West Bank, try to annex more of Syria,
and the ceasefire might be a ruse so that way Trump can take office, boast about securing a deal and releasing some hostages.
The irony of trying to fight another NATO power. Oof.
And then turning a blind eye to whatever happens next after he has his George W. Bush mission accomplished moment and gets to claim that he's a hero. So sure, I do think that Trump deserves credit for this deal, but in the event the worst case scenario comes to fruition because of this deal and Israel starts bombing Gaza again and then annexes a significant portion of the West Bank, Trump also has to accept responsibility for that as well if this was indeed part of the agreement that
But Trump will try and weasel his way out as he always does.
And Netanyahu to come to the table. Now, if it turns out that none of that happens and Trump just straight up stepped in and ended the genocide,
Cenk, Trumpsters will defend it.
Yep, they'll always defend it
in the world
because that's their job.
I'm not ready to congratulate him on a job well done just yet because, as Mohammed pointed out, Trump is transactional, right? And there are conflicts of interest here that we have to be mindful of. His son-in-law, Jared Kushner, would love to own an auction beachfront property on Gaza. Trump himself took $100 million from Miriam Adelson on the condition that he lets Israel annex the entire West Bank. So I'm comfortable for now admitting that Trump deserves credit for the ceasefire. That's objectively good, but ultimately the devil is in the details. What matters is what happens after the ceasefire, if it's only temporary, if there are these conditions that really are attached to it. I mean, Trump will sell out Palestinians in a heartbeat if he thinks that there's something to be gained from it. It goes back to the transactional nature of him as a person, as Mohammed pointed out. But Mohammed also described Biden as ideological, which is correct. This has been evident for a very long time now. Biden genuinely believes in Israel's Zionist project, and he was more than willing to let Israel massacre as many Palestinians as they wanted to in the name.
Biden probably wants a retirement home in Gaza.
Of that colonial project to the point where he was willing to jeopardize Kamala Harris's chances of defeating Donald Trump. Now, with that being said, Kamala Harris is a grown woman, and she could have pulled a Humphrey. She could have distanced herself from Joe Biden. She didn't have to tether herself to that sinking ship, but she refused to do that, and it cost her greatly. Now, leftists like myself warned Democrats that this is something that could cost her the election, and come to find out, it actually did cost her big time.
Yeah, I was actually covering this, like, everyone did a video on this, and Mike just covered the exact thing I was talking about. So thank you, Mike, so we have to bring it up later.
YouGov, a poll released Wednesday, January 15th by IMEU Policy Project in YouGov found what few in the Democratic Party have been willing to admit. Vice President Harris lost votes because of the Biden administration's support for Israel's genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. 29% of voters nationally who voted for Biden in 2020 and did not vote for Kamala Harris in 2024 say ending Israel's violence in Gaza was the top issue affecting their vote choice. When Biden 2020 voters who did not vote for Harris in 2024 were asked which of the following issues were most important in deciding your vote, these
and remember that about a third of the people not only did they not vote for Harris, they flipped to Trump.
These voters stayed home even though they voted for Biden in 2020, citing Gaza as a bigger factor than the economy, which tells you a lot. But there's more. In close battleground states, these were the percentages of voters who didn't vote for Kamala Harris because of her position on Gaza. As you can see, 38% in Arizona, 32% in Michigan and Wisconsin, and 19% in Pennsylvania. Finally, 36% of 2020 Biden voters who didn't vote for Harris said they would have been more likely to vote for Harris if she broke with Biden and promised to withhold weapons from Israel. And even among the 2020 Biden voters who did vote for Harris, 35% said that they would have been more enthusiastic to vote for her if she broke with Biden.
Like me.
In other words, she sacrificed her chances at becoming...
I wasn't too happy about voting for her. It was just to keep Trump up. But if she did that, it would make me feel a little bit more better about it.
The president because of Israel.
True, yeah.
Now, when it comes to
sounds
that
about
last
right.
group of
Similar
people
with
who
me,
sucked it up and
with
voted
similar
for
for me with Albo.
Harris anyway.
I have the benefit of not having to put him on top.
Think that their level of enthusiasm is irrelevant.
At least on his ground, at least with him, he came around at some point to be like, yeah, can we have a ceasefire, please?
Rubbing in my face with ranked choice voting.
Was all that mattered.
Yep.
But it did
Rubbing in my face as always.
Would have maybe encouraged their friends to vote for Kamala Harris too. Maybe they would have donated or phone banked or canvassed for Kamala Harris if they were actually excited about her and didn't just feel like they were voting for the lesser of two evils. So this issue didn't just cost Kamala Harris votes. It demoralized the Democratic Party's base, even the people who voted for her. And
I said it. It was this that helped cost Kamala, pretty much cost Kamala Harris the election.
Maybe that's why you should have forced Israel to stop. How about that one?
Yeah.
Sorry, I told you so.
Exactly.
But what's the point? I don't give a shit about being right. I wish I were wrong.
And Biden wants to retire.
Sometimes,
at a beachfront property in Gaza,
and you're called out for being right. If you're right too soon, and liberals shit on you for it, and could have been prevented. I don't know what to think anymore. This whole past year has been so demoralizing. But
they deserve
come to find out, the issue really didn't matter.
Everything
it played
that
a
the Republicans are going to do to
Harris's
them.
Loss. So, masterful gambit, Democrats. Good job, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. You let Netanyahu play you like a fucking fiddle, and you're leaving the White House with no power and blood on your hands. Good job.
Exactly.
And now Trump and the Republican Party,
they're
stronger than ever, more emboldened than ever.
Yep, and now Trump is going to come in and ensure you guys and try to ensure you guys can never return to power.
I mean, what are you getting out of this? Netanyahu's getting a lot out of this. He's
up.
Potentially getting the West Bank. What are you getting out of this?
Doesn't matter.
Kamala could have been the president of the United States
unless
if she just did the right thing, the common sense thing, the strategic thing.
Republicans with a
but she didn't. What, out of loyalty to Biden?
Hey,
I
we
don't
like
get
democracy,
I am
but that's
genuinely
unlikely.
perplexed by the behavior of this administration. And I'd be remiss to not point out this old tweet from the Gravel Institute, who predicted all of this before Biden even secured the nomination. They tweeted this back in 2019, quote, "If Democrats nominate Joe Biden, he may win and will have 4 years of weak, feckless Democratic leadership. And then, in 4 years, he'll be defeated by a Republican Party even more openly white nationalist. If you nominate an Obama redux, you'll just get a worse Trump redux." And here we are. So, getting back to the ceasefire, I am happy
now we're getting,
for now,
now we're,
but
yep,
I'm
now you guys are going to potentially lose the ability to vote.
One day at a time. I hope
they're going to try. They're going to try and ban.
This really is a permanent
ceasefire.
It's going to try and destroy. I'm crossing my fingers.
They're
but
implement a fascist dictatorship.
If this deal goes through at all or fails at the last minute, we all have to continue to raise our voices for Palestinian human rights, because an end to the genocide isn't going to facilitate an end to the occupation.
If you get the chance, because remember they'll be going on.
You see how weak and pathetic these Trumpsters are? They're fucking cunts and babies.
Never stop speaking out for Palestinians until they are fully liberated. But justice isn't enough. There needs to be accountability for the perpetrators of these crimes. And that doesn't just include Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant. That includes Joe Biden and Antony Blinken, specifically, who aided and abetted these war criminals in Israel at every fucking step of the way.
Nazi terrorists.
You know, if there was injustice in the world, they'd both spend the rest of their pathetic lives behind bars for crimes against humanity, but we all know that's not going to happen. So the best that we get is the satisfaction
corporate Democrat Party should be
knowing that Biden's lasting legacy will be genocide,
in front of the Hague,
and
along with the entire Republican Party,
all of society and all of the world come to that realization and view him as the war criminal that he is.
Yep, they always gotta make everything worse. So yeah, what do you guys say about this?
That's their job.
Yep, so what do you guys say about this ceasefire?
We'll see how long it holds before we see it, before a mushroom cloud goes up over Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
And also, this is probably a pretense for Israel to try to, because remember they're trying to push on in Syria, but they are also keenly aware that they're encroaching onto territory claimed by the Neo-Ottoman Empire. So they're probably going to try and avoid, try and be like, oh yeah, we need things so that we can try and hold off. Try and fight and stand a chance against the Neo-Ottoman Empire.
Maybe you shouldn't try and piss off Syrians after they just got rid of Assad. I would figure you'd want on your side people, but I guess you don't have a brain and all that. So now, on to the next topic.
Which is Biden's report card.
Wait, should it be Claudia?
What?
Mexico's president obliterates neoliberals and conservatives.
Oh, right. Yes. We have that one first.
Yep. So, of course, Claudia, Mexico's newest president since October, has been incredibly based, has an 80% approval right now, and has pretty much obliterated conservatives because, see, what happens when you have an actual base progressive who actually fights? Conservatives whine and cry in a corner because they're babies, like when FDR humiliated them in the 30s and 40s. So, of course, she also obliterated Trump and neoliberals recently, too, in an incredible speech.
Corporate demon rats.
Yep. So, let's watch Claudia's base speech and watch conservatives get terrified. And that's right. That's all you guys got against Claudia. She's a woman. She's a Jew. Bad. That's how it always is. So, let's watch this.
They've only got misogyny and anti-Semitism.
And of course, they're triggered by Spanish words.
In just her first 100 days in power, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum is showing the rest of the Western world that you could do politics a little differently, actually help people, and be more popular. Amazing. So I'm going to show you a couple of clips that have recently popped up of Sheinbaum, as well as how right-wing media has been covering her, and right-wing to mainstream media, how they've been covering her, because it has been hilarious to try and watch them demonize Sheinbaum for things that are incredibly popular. So I'll get to that, as well as her amazing approval rating that has only increased over her first 100 days. So first I want to get to this clip that went viral last week a little bit. These are comments that are clearly mocking Donald Trump. Check this out.
Oh yeah, of course. For all of you who don't know, because this happened after we did the last episode, Trump wants to try and rename the Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. Because, so important, wasting money and resources to rename a Gulf. Big fucking deal, stupid cunts.
Fucking retard. I'm not really afraid to use that word sometimes, honestly.
¿Por qué no le llamamos América Mexicana?
You want to rename Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America? How about we call America the Mexican Empire? And of course, for all of you don't remember, half of Mexico was taken over by America in the Mexican-American War in the 1840s. All the southern states, all the southern states used to be part of Mexico, like the Southwest, and then we cut them in half just like that. Oh, the orangutan will be furious mad. But careful, Claudia, he might get war hungry after hearing that because he's such a cunt. But it's fun watching him maul.
He'll try to do a violent coup
and rape you too, probably.
She wouldn't feel a thing. She'd probably overpower him, honestly.
Because he's too old.
Too old, and the dark side only helps to some degree.
Vamos a llamarle América México.
So in response to Donald Trump floating the idea out there that the Gulf of Mexico should be renamed to the Gulf of America, Sheinbaum
such a serious proposal,
why don't we call America Mexican America? And I don't know, she makes a good point there from a historical perspective. But she also responded to Trump's pitch to slap 25% tariffs on Mexican imports, warning that if the new U.S. administration imposes tariffs on Mexico, her administration will respond with similar measures. She said any sort of tax was, quote, not acceptable and would cause inflation and job losses for the U.S. and Mexico. Now, I also got to share these comments. These came out, or at least I saw this today. Her comments on neoliberalism. Now, this is not translated in the video, so I may as well just I'll link to the video, but I'll read over here as I play a bit of this video. Scheinbaum says, quote, "We will not return to the neoliberal model. We will not return to the regime of privileges and corruption. We say, for the good of all, first the poor." Scheinbaum, once again, showcasing how she stands out from the rest. And the rest, I'm talking in terms
Gee,
of
I wonder why she has an 80%
North
approval
America
right
and
now.
the UK. How she stands out from people like
Yeah,
Biden,
because she's
Trudeau,
actually a
Harper.
good person and not a
And
neoliberal or a fascist goon.
And conservatives know it because that's all they got. Oh, yeah? You're a woman. You're a Jew. That's all we got. How about that?
Because we're bigoted and we're pieces of shit and we hate
Keir
ourselves.
Starmer, and then
And so we're going to project that
Liz
hate
Truss,
onto you
Boris
because
Johnson,
we're dumb.
And we're
jealous. Not a massively enlarged cliptia.
The four conservatives in the UK
And we're jealous
who were
we
all
can't
prime
fuck
minister
you.
at some point. Standing out from all of these people because they are all neoliberals. Yes, of course, there are differences between people like, Trump and Trudeau or whatever. But when it comes down to it, when it comes to economic policy, when it comes to the idea of privatization, when it comes to the idea of handing the keys over to corporations, all of those leaders are incredibly similar. Scheinbaum is sticking out from the pack and continuing the legacy of Obrador in Mexico by giving the power back to the people. Now, I want to show you how right-wing media this is, right-wing, it's really mainstream media. This is not, the Daily Wire or anything. But the National Post in Canada
This is how corporate hate
is a
speech
mainstream
is
paper.
reacting.
Anyone that knows anything understands it's a right-wing paper, but it's a mainstream paper. So their coverage of Scheinbaum, which shortly after she became the president here, saying, "Beneath the surface, Mexico's Claudia Sheinbaum is a typical left-wing politician." Now, watch. It was so fun reading this because it is hilarious to see what they point to try and criticize her. She's been critical of fiscal conservatism and neoliberal economic policies for most of her career. Quote, "For me, being from the left has to do with guaranteeing the minimum rights to all residents," she told the AP last year. In that sense, it is shrinking the great inequalities, reducing poverty by building up the big rights, and at the same time strengthening democracy. We are supposed to dislike this, apparently, according to the framing of this piece. Education, healthcare, housing, jobs, and wages are all areas she said she would focus on as president. She also supports the passage of Obrador's Plan C, which is composed of 18 constitutional reforms, including establishing a minimum wage above the rate of inflation, social programs elevated to constitutional status, and electing judges by popular vote. I'm failing to see the problem here. These are all things that apparently
because
we're
those
not
are not conservatives. That's why.
Neoliberals hate everything.
Scheinbaum also
Because they hate everything about that because they hate poor people and love seeing poor people die and probably want to bathe in poor people's blood.
All right, progressives, are you ready to be jealous what Mexico would be getting if she gets everything she wants? Here we go.
These are all things that apparently we're not supposed to like. Scheinbaum also supports or has supported legalizing abortion, a gender-neutral policy for school uniforms, a universal pension plan, youth apprenticeship programs, funding for public transportation, and Mexico's state-owned oil company. Can someone tell me what the issue is?
All the good stuff.
Legalizing abortion, gender-neutral policies for school uniforms, universal pension plan, youth apprenticeship programs, funded for public transportation, and state-owned oil companies. The fuck over. Let's go.
It's just, it's hilarious to see how
fucking
they
over
try and
ExxonMobil and all them.
Articles like this or pieces like this, they're not
There is
as
going to
specific as
control
this
their
one.
greenhouse gas emissions.
There
They
is-
don't contribute to turning Earth into a second Venus.
And sorry, dipshit Trumpsters, neoliberals, and conservatives, every single one of these policies are base, and you automatically and instantly support them. End of discussion. How about
When we
that
get
one?
into specifics,
Exactly.
It's clear these are
And
all
if you
very
don't,
popular things
kiss
to
it
support.
forward.
So what you actually, before I get to
If
what
you don't,
normally
you're
see,
gonna
I'll get
go
to the
fuck with the
Politico in a
warden
second here. I
in the
forgot this
ancient
piece as
city.
well. They also quote her criticizing what the Israeli government is doing in Gaza. where she said here, quote, because of my Jewish origin, because of my love for Mexico, and because I feel like a citizen of the world.
That's all you guys
I
got.
share with millions the desire for justice, equality, fraternity,
She's
and
a
peace.
Jew.
And
She's a
therefore,
stinky
I can only see
Jew.
the horror
She's
of the
trying to.
images
She's
of the state
pushing
bomb.
the flag
No
of
reason
this
justifies the
communist.
murder of Palestinian
Was it
civilians.
communist,
Nothing
socialist?
Judeo-Bolshevist.
Everything Sheinbaum represents.
Yeah,
This is
the
they go on
communist,
to say everything.
socialist world order of Islam, as Alex Jones once said.
And she's a woman too. Can't have women in power.
Yeah.
Remember?
Resembles what we commonly
I
hear from
remember
most
when
left-wing-
I have these surveys, the first question, one of the questions to ask is, women should, do you agree or disagree with this statement? And it's like, women should stay at home and leave the leading of the country to men. And I'm like, men have stuffed things up badly enough. It's time to give the women a go. And see, I mean, what worse can they do? The worst they can do is just as bad as the men did.
Oh, yeah?
I'm like-
but women are inferior. Have you ever thought about that one, libtard?
If anything, women are slightly superior.
Oh, careful,
Because
they'll be mad hearing that one.
activists and politicians around the globe.
Slightly superior
How
because
dare
they've
she
done as well as they have, despite all the systemic and existential stuff that held against them.
The only thing stupid, dumb women deserve is to get beaten up and make me a sandwich. How about that one?
Nice.
How about we make you do that?
Murdering children.
Do that, bastard.
I'm too
Dare
lazy.
she say that nothing justifies the murder of civilians?
They will beat you.
Sounds like a left-wing
They'll
activist.
beat you like you want to beat women.
What? What is the argument here? That
There is no
cares
argument,
about
don't
people?
we know that because conservatives are morons.
She's against
And neoliberals too.
mass destruction of Gaza.
Based
As
Claudia.
I said,
She is for
as I've
things
said,
like healthcare, housing, jobs, and higher.
as I've said, the corporate Democrats fucked up so badly. They deserve everything that's coming to them.
Stay jealous of based Claudia.
Wages?
Yes, exactly.
So as I was
And we
saying,
know you're
normally
triggered
they're not
because
as specific.
she's a Jew and a
Articles that are
woman,
gonna
all
be
you
critical
got.
of politicians like this aren't as
Yep,
specific
that's all
because
they
you read
have.
them.
That's all
They read
they
like this, they're
have.
hilarious. So what they normally do is what Politico did here. Claudia Sheinbaum will be Mexico's next president, but which version of her will govern? She's a pragmatist and an ideologue. Which will dominate? So
Wow.
by ideologue,
Wow.
they
That
mean
is.
she cares about things like
Dude.
housing.
All I hear is
healthcare,
jealousy.
higher wages. Because right here.
Oh, of
The
course
question
they're
raised in
jealous
here is which
because
of Sheinbaum's
she's
two
popular and
personalities
they're
will dominate?
not.
Some think she'll be
And she's
Mexico's
based on
angry
like that.
Everyone-
scientist by
Yeah,
trade.
because everyone
Sheinbaum
hates
is
hates them and
efficiency
wants
over
them to be put
ideology
in a
for the
flat,
nation's
put in front of that Hague and
For the nation's
executed
benefit.
publicly.
No wonder she shuts you conservatives up just like that. Because she's based, you got
Yep.
nothing but woman Jew.
Apparently is to ignore issues like low wages. Others see her
Hey,
as a mere
since she actually does stuff and since she's a Jew, maybe dumb leftists will hate her too.
Overlord who will follow in
I
his
can
leftist
imagine
footsteps.
they already
Increasing
are, because
social
remember, they're
welfare
often as
programs.
anti-Semitic as the right.
And they
Because
deny it.
remember, again, at some point up the authoritarian scale, left and right become meaningless.
How dare she? And battling the nation's Supreme Court, which by that they mean democratizing it, allowing people
Yep.
to vote who's on the Supreme Court. Like battling the Supreme Court as if trying to make her sound she's anti-democratic. No, she's trying to bring democracy into the process.
Yeah, they're
So,
she's
just-
been pro-democracy.
This is always the
unlike you
issue
people who want to
When
destroy
it comes to how the
democracy.
media covers politicians like this.
You already
When someone
did
pops up,
destroy
we saw it
democracy
with-
by rigging the primaries, and you'll be rigging all the primaries in the future until we kill you all off.
Oh yeah, Claudia? How about Trump takes you over and kills you? How about that? They'll probably go.
Bernie Sanders in 2016
Of
and
course,
2020. Just
because
the
they're
sheer
fucking
level of
demons.
BS.
And we want a bukkake
from
over
places
you.
like the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, of course, right-wing media like Fox News. But just the endless demonizing of somebody that simply wants to bring power back to the people. Wants people to be
Exactly.
guaranteed things like healthcare.
the
And they
nerve of
hate it.
Claudia
They
being
hate it.
based.
They hate it.
Full time.
And they hate it because they hate power.
Afford to
People
buy a house.
power. They
afford
hate
rent, afford to buy
democracy.
food. These are apparently
Mexico, could you please give us to her, please?
ideological positions or extreme positions to mainstream press.
Why can't we have nice things like you
Now-
guys?
Because your country is a
David Adler writes
shithole.
here,
That's
in
why.
office, Mexican
Fuck you,
President Claudia
conservative.
Sheinbaum is winning record levels of citizen approval at all levels of educational attainment, even among the partisans of her opposition. So, if you can read Spanish, here you go. But she's apparently, I can tell by the green, she's very popular. But, piece here as well. She is now at an 80% approval rating after 100 days. This is a 4-point
See what happens when you have a base progressive,
this
people?
Is unheard of.
Now, can you imagine if we had Bernie
US,
not be screwed
Canada,
over, people?
UK. An approval rating like this.
Imagine
And
if
it's
the
because
corporate Democrats hadn't
of
rigged
her focus-
every
on
primary from here
the power
until
of people over
on and
special
now from
interests.
here until forever.
So citizens value Scheinbaum's social policies most. Pensions, educational scholarships, and aid to various groups garner 41% support. Interestingly, 19% of those approving of her management can't explain why. Their survey shows 39% of households receive federal government aid. This figure rises to 80% for those over 65. Given Mexico's ongoing challenges, Scheinbaum's high approval is unsurprising. Now, I want to be clear. It's 100 days in.
Yep.
We don't know how the rest is going to go. She could change. Things can, there may be pressure on her from other powers that cause her to go in a different direction. But as things currently stand, she maintains a position of being anti-neoliberal and for the people.
And she's
and
based.
It has only helped her.
Yep, she is. Based.
I want to bring this up because as I wrote on Twitter here, this kind of approval rating is unheard of under, Biden, Trump, Harper, Trudeau, Starmer, May, Boris. I think I missed
even Albo at his peak wasn't
Elizabeth,
close.
May, Boris Johnson, Truss, Sunak.
Because none of you
But
are
someone replied to
progressives.
this With a point worth mentioning here. Jose said, politically and culturally, Mexico is a different animal. I've lived there. All parties run on rights for the underprivileged and a strong social safety net. That's what makes them popular. In the U.S., you're a communist. We love having the freedom, quote unquote, to get screwed by the system. This is so true. The way that people are conditioned to believe that freedom is the freedom for corporations to F you over.
Positive and negative freedoms.
That is what has gone on.
Exactly.
In the U.S., in Canada, in the U.K., over decades. And you can really go back to
Australia as well.
Reagan and Thatcher, and thank them for all of that. And the move
and Malcolm
towards that.
Fraser and Bob Hawke.
This has been the freedom that people have been given. It's not actual freedom in their lives in terms of freedom to not worry about, the cost of healthcare, freedom to not worry about having to pay rent, but it's been the freedom for corporations to screw you. That's neoliberalism. So I do think there is an issue with the, as mentioned there, culturally an issue with people being unable to separate those things. Maybe seeing a Bernie Sanders and thinking he's extreme when really clearly he is not. So there's definitely a cultural barrier there, but the bigger barrier there is...
If you think Bernie's an extremist, you're an extremist.
And dominance.
Exactly.
And
How about that one, people?
Exactly.
Like a Bernie Sanders. People that want to actually deliver power back to the people. That is an issue now, but I think it's going to be less and less of an issue as media is, completely disjointed. A lot of it is online. People get, whether it's extreme ideas from places like Facebook, but they also get information that is actually accurate and speaks to the needs of people as well from places like YouTube or elsewhere. So there is more of an opportunity, I think, to grow awareness around the real path forward and helping people understand the similarities between someone like a Biden and a Trump or a Trudeau and a Harper when it comes to economic policy, and opening people's eyes up to maybe understanding that there is another path forward that doesn't have to go down this corporate aligned politics.
So yeah, we gotta say about based Claudia. Oh my goodness.
That's amazing. Yep, completely destroying and debunking everything about neoliberal ghouls and neoliberal subhumans who just want to kill everyone. Yep, and all the conservative ghouls who just want to kill and rape everything and rape everyone.
Damn it, you make me jealous every week, and then she comes and makes us all jealous. Mexico, please send us your best too. Stop making me jealous.
Yes.
Yep. Give us someone so we can replace the orangutan really quickly, please.
Yeah.
So yeah, based, good on you, Mexico. Now if only we could listen to you all. and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So now, on to the next topic.
Now we get on to the Biden report card.
Yep, because Kyle did a video on us. We talked with Vanguard recently. He did a very quick segment on what he thinks Biden's report card is. And of course, since this is the last episode we're covering with him as president, I figured, why not we finally do a report card on him. And Kyle, I think, did a pretty good job of that. So here we go.
Let's see what he
kind of had a trend of when a candidate leaves office, you do a report card. I'm curious to get your early thoughts on Joe Biden, given the fact that he was a guy that, you were extremely charitable to when he took office. I think that, you were really willing to give him a clean slate and give him credit for things like the Afghanistan withdrawal, things like that. But obviously, after October 7th, 2023, his entire legacy changes. I'm just curious, as you approach this, and I imagine you do a video on Joe Biden's report card when he leaves office, how are you weighing his domestic policy versus his foreign policy? And how do you think that in 25 years from now, people are thinking about Joe Biden's presidency?
So, first of all, I actually, and many people have pointed this out, I actually haven't done an official Trump one, but I kind of did an unofficial Trump one. For those of you who are interested in seeing that one, you can, I believe it was a day before the election, I did a video. I wish I could remember what it was titled. I don't remember what it was titled, but it was something about it might have been anti-endorsement of Donald Trump, or here's why Donald Trump shouldn't win, or something like that. It was the day before the election, and in that I sort of lay out everything about Trump, the few good policies he did, the overwhelmingly horrific policies he did, and that's effectively my Trump report card. Spoiler alert: it's an F. I don't think I say that in the video, but that literally is what it is. For
the fact
Biden,
that Trump got an F is an accomplishment for him. It should be F infinite minus.
This is the first time I've thought about it.
It should be a Z.
And it would be such a difficult one to do for this very simple reason. If you look at foreign policy, well, even that
it's a Z. It's F for
accurate. If you look at Israel and Gaza, he gets literally a 0%. It just arming and funding and genocide.
No, that's charitable. He gets negative 30%.
Yep, Brian, you fucked up really bad by supporting Israel.
Sitting there casually accepting it. And even
remember, he wants a holiday home in the Gaza Strip. So
Israel sets up concentration camps,
and then he'll just die because he's old.
And hospitals and UN workers and World Central Kitchen workers and starve all of North Gaza.
Actually, you know what? That's a question. That's a question I've got for you. How long, after leaving office, how long do you think Biden will go before he dies?
Oh man, maybe less than a year.
No, I'd say probably maybe about a year.
Well, we'll see.
He's
and then hopefully he'll take the orangutan with him too, because he's in worse shape
too.
The
most egregious, horrific, savage, brutal things you've ever seen. Israeli officials on a daily basis sounding like they're quoting fucking Mein Kampf, and you have Biden still here's more money, here's more weapons. So on that front alone,
we want to murder the ultra-mentioned Palestinians.
It
almost doesn't matter what else you did. It's how am I going to raise your grade? If I did. I looked after my sister really well and made sure she got taken care of. But also, I'm a mass murderer. It's okay, well then I sort of got to deduct you on the mass murder thing, and that sort of ruins your whole opportunity, right? I can't give you a good grade now, right? So I don't know how I would grade him for that simple reason, is that everything in me screams F, 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 because you're arming and funding a genocide, which I think it's reasonable to take that position. At the same time, if we were to sort of separate it out, right? If we were to give it different categories, here's the economy is one, right? So domestic policy is one. Pre-October 7th foreign policy is another one. And then Israel, Gaza, post-October 7th is the third. If you grade it like that, then it actually gets really interesting, because by far, domestically, he's by far the most progressive president of your lifetime and my lifetime. And it's not even close. It's not even particularly close.
Yeah, that's the insane
what he did is
thing.
He's so old, he's so ancient that he actually remembers the FDR era. He was actually around for the FDR era, so he remembers what it's like for Democrats to actually believe that government can be a force for good in people's lives domestically. And so he really did sort of split the difference. He was half Obama / Bill Clinton, half FDR. And so that's why you got things like the CHIPS Act and the Infrastructure Bill and the Inflation Reduction Act and the $1,400 stimulus checks and the project labor agreements and the 800,000
Remember when we covered I think it was when he and Crystal talked to Brianna Joy Gray, and we point out,
yes.
yeah, Biden exceeded my expectations. He did things that I didn't think he was going to do. I thought he was going to on purpose fuck us over.
We've had some jobs created, and whatever. The list goes on and on. So if you were to grade it like that, you'd got to go like, I don't know, maybe C+ or B on the economy
B
front,
minus,
and then probably
I'll give him
go
a
C+
B
or
minus.
On the foreign policy front
Personally.
prior to October 7th, because he pulled us out of Afghanistan and told the media to suck his nuts, told the Republicans to suck his nuts.
Yep,
told
and
the
that's when his
establishment
polls dropped when he dropped out of Afghanistan.
Yep.
Although, Kyle, we must ask, how would you grade him about the Russo-Ukraine war? We're very suspicious of you, We know you're past on this issue. I would like an answer on that one.
We know that you do not believe in the sovereignty of Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia.
Which is what we would grill you on if we ever had a chance to talk to you.
Democrats to suck his nuts. Nearly eliminated the drone war. But then he just fucking squandered all of it. He just squandered all of it by arming and funding.
Remember, too, that September 2023 when we covered not only their discussion with Brianna, but remember when Cenk was going on like, Biden could never win no matter what and all that. Like, even back then, I was thinking maybe Biden could potentially get my vote in 2024. Then 10-7 was like, nope, not gonna get. And then, of course, when Trump said that he would encourage Putin to invade NATO if they don't pay 2%, I was like, oh, great, now I'm forced to.
A genocide, knowing he was arming and funding a genocide. And now you even have outlets like fucking 60 Minutes just did a detailed report the other night. And they're like, yeah, basically everything every lefty was saying from fucking day one is 100% accurate. You had people in the U.S. going up to Biden administration
because
officials.
we're always right.
So, hey, here's a bunch of pictures of kids who
retard,
got sniped in the head on purpose by the IDF, and we kind of think this is bad, and they're like, we don't want to see that. Get that away from us. And it's like, so what do you want me to do in that scenario? It's like, I can't help but say, fuck you, you get an F for blowing it. And
they're jealous of their green clothes.
Parallel here is obvious. It's
and remember, they want to
Lindsey Johnson,
because they're nose.
Escalated the war in Vietnam over and over and over. Countless deaths, like 1 million Vietnamese killed, more than that probably. So a lot of tens of thousands of U.S. troops died in that instance too. Escalate. While at home, he's like, let's do the war on poverty, right? And so the sweet spot is very simple. The sweet spot is very straightforward. All you have to do, for the love of God, all you have to do is genuinely be anti-war, actually care about international law and human rights and things of that nature.
That means helping Ukraine, Kyle. We're going to grill you on that.
Helping Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia. Because we know Ukraine and Taiwan and
Philippines.
Yep. And all as much of a fascist piece of shit as who's the I've forgotten who the piece of shit in charge of the Philippines is.
I know it's Marcos's kid.
And domestically,
I can't remember his exact name.
And bring back new.
But he did also. But remember, that guy even botched the reconstruction of Marawi after the Islamists attacked.
If the U.S. president were to do that, I'd be more than happy to give him a fucking A. But nobody has married all of those things together, right? And it's kind of crazy because, like, Obama went from being way worse than Biden to now at the end, if you do an analysis of both presidencies, I think you kind of got to say, in totality, Obama was better just because he didn't arm and fund a direct genocide in fucking Israel, right? And that's crazy.
I would also make the argument that Obama was better because he had 8 years. Biden only had 4.
Yeah.
That's a major thing, too. And that was like a big thing why, for a long time, I wouldn't say Trump was the worst president. I still say Bush was because he only had 4 years. But now he has another 4 years, so we'll see if that changes by then.
Because for a while there, Biden was way ahead of Obama, and now that seemingly flipped at the end.
So, yeah, what do you guys say about that? Below average rate for Biden. But, yeah.
I think that works at that about point.
But, yeah, that's what we got to say about Biden.
So I'm going to say domestic B minus.
Yeah.
Foreign policy prior to October 7th A minus, and finally post October 7th foreign policy F and T, infinity minuses for fascist Nazi terrorists.
But yeah, Biden exceeded my expectations. He did things I never would have expected. I thought he was going to, on purpose, become like a far-right piece of shit as like a fuck you to progressives and all that. And he did a lot of base progressive things that Bernie would done, and base protectionist things that Vosh got mad over for no reason.
Yes. Well, of course, because he's a neoliberal CIA agent.
And he actually did the policy that Trump claims he supported, but didn't, and fucked them up, whereas Biden did them correctly. How's that feel, Trumpsters? And of course, that was absolutely the right thing to leave Afghanistan, which was the reason why his polls tanked and never recovered afterwards, because I remember the polls afterwards. And of course, absolutely based, even though Kyle's probably going to be triggered hearing this, helping Ukraine defend themselves, even though he needs to go farther in that regard. He's like very slow on it. But all that is almost going to be, it's like, here's a good way. Biden will probably be viewed like LBJ, who was awesome domestically, but the Vietnam War cost him. Likewise, supporting Israel's genocide of the Palestinians is going to cost Biden forever. And that's why you shouldn't have supported him. And also, that hurt Kamala's chances to win too. When we say stop, you instantly stop.
That helped ensure the end of the American experiment.
Yeah, you instantly stop when we tell you to do something. And that's the end of it. It ain't that hard, people. You just do it. So, overall, I guess I would say Biden's both a surprise and a failure and disappointment at the same time.
Yep.
Well, that's his fault, and no one else left to say. All right, so now, on to our final topic.
A final warning for conservatives.
Yep. Here is our official warning to any Trumpsters and conservatives watching as we get ready for the dipshit orangutan coming back in a few days. We, unlike Cenk, unlike last time too in the first term, where I was more on Cenk's side at that point, when he was being all resistance, all this and that, and I tried to be like, let's try and work together. Maybe you can actually explain to you why your views are wrong and you need to support progressive policies if you want to get things done. And then you show that you're not going to listen whatsoever. So we're going to make this abundantly clear. We are not going to be friendly with you these next 4 years. We are going to viciously mock Trump, and we're going to viciously mock you. You think we viciously mock you?
Viciously attack every chance we get. And we're going to make it impossible, do our damnedest to make it impossible for you to do anything.
Yep, we're going to try our best. You think we make fun of you these last few years? Oh, we're going to go into overdrive now. We're going to be vicious. We'll probably make it almost a weekly segment about how Trump is too brain dead and old to run. How about that one? You remember you all said that about Biden, but never said anything about Trump would apply the same way? Oh, we're going to mock you viciously for that one.
Yes, we're going to love it.
We're going to point out that your policies suck ass, as they always do. And if you want to get anything done, you have to support progressive policies. And you know what? I'll say this too. If you support us on the issues, then we will work with you on that regard. But if you don't, then fuck off. And likewise,
fuck off and die.
And like we said too about Biden when he first came in, if Trump does do good things, we will give him credit for it. Now, of course, he's not going to do good things. And if he even did do good things, it's not going to negate all the horrible things he does. But we'll be objective, unlike you guys. So how about that one? If when he does stuff bad, we're going to shit on him. When he does something good, we'll praise him. Just like we did about Biden, which made you all violently mad.
Don't mold, sieve, dilate, L+ ratio.
But we are not going to be friendly with you. We're going to viciously mock and criticize you because you deserve it. And we're going to be even more smug about it for next 4 years. And then when Trump fucks shit up, Democrats will take over the House and the Senate in 2026, and then we'll kick out whoever replaces Trump in 2028. And hopefully this time, you will all permanently remember to never vote for Republicans and conservatives ever again, like I had to learn growing up dealing with Bush. Permanently maybe progressive, and I'm never changing, and hopefully you all will realize the same. So, to boil it down simply, fuck you.
Fuck off. We're gonna be absolutely bullying monsters we're gonna be bullying you every chance we get, and you deserve it because you're the people that are trying to end democracy.
And then in 2 weeks, when we do the next episode, when we're going to have like the first 2 weeks of Trump's administration, we're going to viciously go after every single thing he does, like Kyle and Mike will do, and it's going to be so much fun. So, you've been warned. If you want the good things to happen, you have to support progressive policies. That's the end of it.
Exactly.
So, surrender. All right. So with that, we are now done with episode 120. And see you all next time when the orangutan comes back, and we're going to make fun of him. Oh yeah, another thing too to mention. If all of you watch our show to watch us viciously mock Trump for enjoyment, well, you're going to be in luck the next 4 years, because we're going to have a fun time making fun of him and conservatives.
We're going to have our own segment. Every single episode beating Trump up about it.
Because you're all stupid.
Yeah, all horrified, all stupid idiots.
So yeah, if you enjoy seeing us viciously mock him, then you're gonna be in a good treat the next 4 years. So tune in for that. So see you all guys for episode 121.
See you then.